Good Monday morning, everybody. Welcome in. You know what month it is? We have made it to March.
Isn't that incredible?
You took a big sigh there.
I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm a
Okay.
happy man.
No,
We're in March.
No, we need to be happy. It's March. There's a lot of stuff that happens in March.
So much stuff that happens in March.
Some people say it's the best month of the year.
I don't know if it's the best month of the year, but I would say it's a pretty damn good month. If you ask me.
You got March Madness. You got opening day, NFL free agency, the state basketball tournaments. Girls start this week, boys next week. So that means that there will be a major winter storm coming through. And guess what? On Tuesday, whatever this weather is around here, but it's March and 13 days from now.
Selection Sunday.
Selection Sunday.
Wow.
There's only one guaranteed team that is in the bracket.
And that
would be Creighton.
Oh, okay.
Creighton is the only guaranteed team around here that is in the bracket.
I thought
everybody else.
I thought you were talking about like the entirety of the NCAA tournament. Auburn, maybe. Alabama, maybe. Creighton, they're in.
Yeah,
that's what I thought you were saying.
Peter.
Yes.
Matt is like overmodulated. Like he is bumping.
Yeah, I'm
like we're here on Friday. Now you're excited. Like,
oh God.
I'm always excited.
No, it is not rigged for where just Creighton is in the NCAA tournament. But 13 days from now, what a weekend for hoops, by the way. And by the way, also welcome back.
Thank you, man.
You survived a trip back home.
I did survive. You and I were talking, man. Wrigley Field has never been better. It has never been more alive. We walked in, my buddies go, hey, let's go to Wrigley. Like, it's going to be pretty calm. No big deal. Not a lot of – we walked in. You would have thought it was right after the Cubs had beaten the St. Louis Cardinals in August. Beautiful night. I mean,
what was going on in Wrigley Field?
No, it was like a college party. I mean, it was just all the young people decided, hey, on this February or actually March Saturday, we're all going to go out. We're all going to enjoy the weather. I went to Sluggers for the first time in my life. I had never been to Sluggers before. It's a very famous Wrigley Field bar. Incredible.
It's okay.
Had a great time.
It's okay.
I love the piano bar. They had the piano bar upstairs. They were playing some great music. We went up there. I forgot my card at the bar, so then I had to go after we left. I had to go back. I had to bring it back. Then they had wrongfully charged me on another person's tab, so then I had to figure that out. It was a great night. It's your classic,
a typical night out for you.
Classic quintessential college night out for me. So it was great. Oh, and my mom and dad are great.
Oh, by the way. Yeah.
They're doing pretty well.
You just popped in to say hello?
Oh, yeah. When I was in my house for an hour, I go, hey, great to see you guys. Hope all's well. I'm going to Wrigley. That's what I said.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, welcome back. All right. Busy week around here. This is the last week of regular season for some hoops. For some, they're going to the Summit League tournament as the number one seed.
Oh, yes.
Peter and I were together on Saturday. Peter enjoyed that.
It was fun.
Yeah.
That's incredible, man. It's what a hell of a season. And you know what? You're welcome.
I'm welcome.
You're welcome.
Why am I welcome?
Because I come here and I become your co-host, and the Mavericks see success that they've never seen before in D1, at least in NCAA D1.
You showed up and we immediately went on a 2-game losing streak.
I showed up and you immediately went on a 10-game winning streak, which helped propel the Omaha Mavericks into the Summit League standings. So you know what? Congratulations. Hey. I'm so happy for you. You're welcome.
Everybody in the 402 and across the state of Nebraska and the nation can hop on the Omaha bandwagon.
Yes.
You know what? If you're angry about the basketball team in Lincoln, you know what? There's a team in Omaha that is part of the system that you can jump on. But they're headed to the Summit League tournament as the regular season champs. Peter and I were together on Saturday. Can you guess the rapper that I quoted in the call of Omaha winning 80-57 against ORU to clinch the regular season championship?
I know you. Kendrick. It was
good guess, but
good guess. It's kind of in the ballpark.
They've been paired together in a lot of the news.
Drake? You quoted Drake?
I quoted Drake.
You quoted Drake? Out of everybody to quote, you quoted Drake?
Started at the bottom, now we're here.
There you go.
Started at the bottom, but the whole roster
here. Okay, so wait. So real quick, if they end up winning the Summit League Conference Championship.
Haven't even thought about it.
Tournament.
Haven't even thought about it. Nope, I haven't thought about it. Don't touch the money. Can't touch the money.
Trophies?
I haven't touched the money.
Trophies? You quote trophies?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't touch the money. I completely...
It's out of your mind.
Nope, I haven't even thought about
You're
it.
on to the winner of North Dakota State or Kansas City or Roberts.
Whoa.
Kansas City or Roberts.
Yes. Can't touch the money. Have to play one game at a time. Head down, focused, take it as it comes.
Clear eyes, full heart.
Yeah. But on a serious note, and there was a lot of unseriousness that went on post-game after Omaha won the Summit League regular season championship. What a great atmosphere over at Baxter Arena on Saturday. I'm like the only person that is left from a couple of different eras.
Wow.
And it's I didn't know that we would see this, but it was a hell of an accomplishment, hell of an emotion. And here's the thing. It has been a wonderful season for Omaha men's basketball, and they got to win 3 more games. So, or St. Thomas win the conference tournament, and Omaha gets the auto bid from the Summit League because St. Thomas is in the last year of transition, and so they're ineligible. But the Summit League made a decision to have them play in the conference tournament when the league was a little bit bigger. But a week from today, we could be
3 games.
We could be having some serious discussions. But it was a great atmosphere. The place was bumping again. It's been a great year in that arena. They didn't lose at home in the Summit League. They were a little tension convention with Oral Roberts, then pulled away. And
yeah,
it was really cool what they did at the end of the game. So, I don't call it a shtick because it's real. Kyan Brown, the assistant coach, has tried to explain the whole trash can thing, where it started and how it wasn't just like a prop or a funny thing. It was like he was pissed.
It was natural.
Yeah. So it's kind of become Omaha's thing. And there's, I've said this many times about, especially Omaha men's basketball in a town where you have, Creighton. Creighton is, for basketball, is the show. And rightfully so, they have earned that. So Omaha is always trying to find their niche. And the couple of years that Omaha has almost broken through in men's basketball, it's been because of local guys that are playing, or they play a style under Coach Hansen where you run up and down the floor, you score a lot of points, you're exciting to watch. And so they haven't been able to break through. So they've gotten to the final twice in Sioux Falls, and they've lost both times. But you're trying to find, like, where do you fit in the basketball market in this town? And one, you got to win. Also, you got to be a little bit different. But I also think this year taught everybody that brought people in from the 402 and nationally, you also kind of have to be like minor league baseball-ish. Like, you have to have a shtick that makes you different.
Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Happer. You have to like, there's something has to be different about you because you blend in. There's so many friggin' teams. There's, 350 plus teams that play Division I basketball. And in this town where, again, Creighton gets a lot of attention, rightfully so, not complaining. They've earned it and they deserve it. They put $17K in the building. But this year has been a major step forward because people have recognized Omaha basketball because they are, if they make the NCAA tournament, they're one of the unique stories of a 15-16 because they have the trash can. Now
they have a great story because of the trash can, but also too, it's the first time the team will ever make the NCAA
they will
tournament
get off that list
as well.
But I'm going to tell you something else about this team, and the ball knowers out there know this. They are more than a trash can.
Yeah,
they're a good team. They're a really good basketball team, and I think you're going to see that tomorrow at noon when the Summit League announces its awards. Like, they'll have the player of the year, the coach of the year. They should have, because the Summit League does a little bit differently. If you win the player of the year, you're not on the first team. You're separate. So it actually allows Omaha to get J.J. White on the first team. But they're a good team. They're more than a trash can. But the trash can brings people in to go, okay, let's check out this team. And then you go, damn, they only won 2 years ago. They only won 9 games throughout the entire year. They were picked 8th in a 9-team league. And now they win the league by 2 games. So they go 13-3. They finish the last 3 games where they trailed for a grand total of 39 seconds. And in all 3 games, at some point, led by 17 points. They're good. They're more than a trash can. They're good, and they just need to be good, better than good for 3 straight games in Sioux Falls beginning on Thursday.
You call it. You didn't call it, but you kind of mentioned it as like a niche or a shtick. But like, this isn't just an Omaha thing, but like a lot of the memorable teams who go on great runs, not just in college basketball, but sports in general, they have unique names or unique things or unique just instances that happen that you might relate to them, right? The Legion of Boom, that was a really great name. If we're going a little bit more niche, when the Cubs made their run in 2015, every time they get a hit, they put their hand on top of their head, they rub it. Fans do that all the time at Wrigley, right? When they would get a hit, there was something that you could relate, something special, something unique, something organic that you could be like, hey, that's fun, that's cool. Omaha just happens to be kicking the crap out of a basket or out of a trash can every time they win a game. But you bring up the fact that they're actually a good team. We've talked a lot about roster construction in college basketball over the last couple months when it comes to other teams in the state.
Why does Nebraska have to get into this conversation?
Wait. This team, this Omaha team, talk about a team that is well constructed, that do complement each other, that they do really have the spacing, and they have the guys coming off the bench like Waddles and Jayshon Glover who can give you that spark. They have the physicality down low in the paint with Josh Strite and Isaac Adekane. And then you also have an elite point guard. You have an elite spacer in Tony Osborne, and then you have your superstar in Markel Sutton, who's going to win the Summit League Player of the Year. Yes, you hope. It's a really well-constructed roster that plays fluid basketball, that has a ton of chemistry. That makes sense. Yep. It makes sense. And they're good. They're more, like you said, they're more than just a trash can. They're more than just a shtick. They're more than just a good story. It's a good basketball team. I've been lucky enough to see them play 3 or 4 times with my own 2 eyes.
They're lucky enough to see them play 31 times this year.
It's awesome.
There's probably about 5 of those times I was like, you know what, game can't get over soon enough. The other part of what Omaha has done, and they're not Nebraska, they're not Creighton, so you got people cheer for Nebraska, cheer for Creighton. They're like, wow, Omaha, this is a really good story. Again, really good basketball team. It's okay, hop on for the ride it all the way you can, because there's a couple of things in play here as Omaha, which has never been to the NCAA tournament, begins this week, and we're going to get to Nebraska, we're going to get to Creighton. The only team that won on Saturday was the team that got to cut down nets at Baxter Arena. They have 2 things that are working for them. And there haven't been a lot of times where the administration and the athletic department at UNO, since they went Division I, and take out hockey is aside,
sure,
that have been aligned. And they are very, very fortunate right now at, 60th and Dodge, where the campus sits, is that they have a chancellor who is very, very active on social media. She is wonderful at her job of being the chancellor of the academic side, but she loves sports and she's super supportive. John Christensen, who was the chancellor before Dr. Gold, he was a big sports guy, and that helped out immensely across the board. And then Dr. Gold is like sports, but he's not really, he's more of an academic person.
Yeah.
Chancellor Lee can do both. And I don't know how Omaha's been able to do it, but they've been able to hold on to her. I mean, there are a lot of people that want her. Nebraska, there was a lot of talk that she was going to go to Lincoln. She stayed at Omaha. She is such a blessing for that university in so many different ways. But her being a sports person, and she sits courtside at basketball games, she goes to all the hockey games. What she did on Saturday is fantastic. So the whole trash can thing is, if you haven't heard, back in December, Omaha was very malaise. Kyan Brown, assistant coach under Chris Crutchfield, walked into the locker room, didn't like what he saw. The vibe was really, really bad. We were struggling at the time. We just come off a road trip to Northern Iowa and Iowa State and got our ass kicked. Walks in, doesn't like it, kicks a trash can, and that's kind of where it all started. So it has built, and it's involved wrestlers. So AEW, which, again, credit to Jordan Sarnoff, who is in the athletic department, runs the athletic communications. He reached out to WWE. They were busy trying to set up the WrestleMania John Cena heel storyline, so they didn't respond.
Yep.
AEW responded. So Tony Khan, the Outrunners came here last week. They did this. You would have loved this as a big wrestling guy.
Yeah.
So they sent a real AEW championship belt. That thing was heavy.
Yeah.
I went and picked it up before the game. It's like 15 to 20 pounds.
Yeah, those things are heavy.
It's a big boy. It is a massive, massive championship.
So they sent it, and then they sent, like the plates on the real belt have like pictures of North America or whatever. Yeah. They sent AEW made customized Omaha logo plates that they screwed in. And so they designed this idea, and, I'm a big, again, don't touch the money, but they were telling me that before the game, hey, this is how it's going to work. We're going to put 30 minutes on the clock because they had to transition to hockey later that night. But you're going to see something else. And let me tell you, you got to come see the belt. So I went and saw the belt, and I'm like, geez. They go, we're going to put Chancellor Lee in a trash can. We're going to wheel her out to center court, and then she's going to pop out of the trash can holding up the belt. And Chancellor Lee is probably 5'3", 5'4". She pops out of the trash can. The chancellor of school pops out of the trash can holding the belt. It was a great, great moment. And I hope people realize how huge this week is for Omaha men's basketball. Again, if St. Thomas wins the conference tournament, Omaha still goes to the NCAA tournament. But just like Saturday, where they said, we want the title all to ourselves. They want the title in Sioux Falls all to themselves. It will be it will be the top accomplishment in athletic history at that school. And men's basketball finally held up their end of the bargain. Hockey's put banners in the rafters. Volleyball has, softball, baseball, soccer's have all been to the NCAA tournament, but men's basketball, which needs to be, a driver just like hockey, hasn't held up their end of the bargain until this year to break through. I hope people realize that, knock on wood, week from the day, that university could change forever. If you go to the NCAA tournament, I had a front row seat at Florida Gulf Coast University, which was they were in a transition. They went from a Division II program to Division I. Now, granted, Fort Myers and having a beach on campus looks a little bit different than having Sapp Fieldhouse. But if they make the NCAA tournament, it changes that university forever. There's more attention. There's a whole week of people talking about you. You show up in a bracket 2 weeks from yesterday. You're on a national show where your name shows up on a line. Applications go up. People pay more attention. And people take your university from the athletic side seriously.
Yes.
Because I think in this town, there's still people that are like, man, you're still playing all the teams you played in Division II. Well, a lot of those teams are in the Summit League. But now you go to the NCAA tournament. That's something that the university can put their hat on. The athletic department can go, we got to the NCAA tournament in men's basketball. And of course, the men's basketball program would benefit greatly. So it's been a fun ride. It's got another week to go. And anybody want to hop on? We'll see you in Sioux Falls on Thursday night.
The funny thing is, you talk about respect. I mean, that is like a massive part of this and making the tournament. And I'll talk about this from someone who didn't grow up in Nebraska, came to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really, quite honest with you, knew that there was a system of Nebraska schools and all that stuff, but never really knew University of Nebraska Omaha as a sports school. Never had seen them play in anything before. Was really barely even knew that they were D1, let alone formerly D2, turned into D1. It just, as an outsider, you just didn't know they exist. And the reason why I didn't know they exist is because they weren't on my screen watching sports. And as a sports guy, I knew colleges, and part of the reason why when I was applying to colleges, I knew certain colleges was because I saw them play in the NCAA tournament, or I saw them play in the Frozen Four, or I saw them, sports has a lot to do with the image, at least for me and for a lot of the people, I associated with growing up, of how do you know schools? A team, like you said, like University of Nebraska Omaha, who's never been on that stage, more people get to know about you. And I think within the state as well, there's a bit of an outlook of all right, when it comes to athletics, there's University of Nebraska, then Creighton's got, volleyball and basketball. And then, UNO's over there. UNO's kind of in the background. They're a mid-major, okay, cool. My friend, I got a couple of friends who play it, who are Mavericks, whatever. For them to make that tournament and for them to say, no, we're not just here and we're not just a D1 program in the state. We are legitimate contenders within multiple sports. It's massive. And so to earn that respect, to get put on that stage, and then also too, they're not just going to be a 16 seed or a 15 seed. There are people nationally who are already aware of what's been happening in Omaha with the trash cans because of the attention they've garnered from ESPN, from Scott Van Pelt, from, those little vignettes and one-on-ones that they've done. And so not only will they be a 16 or maybe even 15 seed, but they will be a known 16 or 15, which adds to that respect, which adds to that level, which adds to the exposure that you get on that stage. So it's been an incredibly magical season for this team.
I'm a big fan of going to Dayton.
Yeah.
But they're
they might be playing too well.
They win the regulars or the postseason. They'll probably be a 15. There's just a lot of pride. It's a very good athletic department that's got really good coaches that have had success in men's basketball. Finally said, okay, we're going to join the party. So Thursday night in Sioux Falls, 6 o'clock. Peter, are we together? Peter's my good luck charm.
TBD, but there's a good chance. Yeah.
All right.
You're like, Peter, you better be. You better be, Peter.
Producer Josh has a lot on his plate with modifying the schedule this week as things are touch and go. But yeah, I'm hoping it should be me.
Pete,
Yeah,
do you have a record? Do you know what your record is for?
I do not know, but we've been on a pretty good run
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
The weather. Well, because you have Omaha, Nebraska baseball over at Tal Anderson on Tuesday, I think that's going to get banged.
Yeah,
what the hell is going on with the weather?
So I was actually just on the Twitter timeline, something just showed up from the weather service about what that's all going to look like. It's pretty much early Tuesday is going to be some rain and maybe thunderstorms. And then it might devolve into some snow with blizzard conditions likely because the gusts are going to get up to like 50 miles per hour. They're saying the snow might not stick, but it's going to be blowing around everywhere.
Why are we getting hurricane winds? What are we doing?
Who knows?
We're not. Did you bring the weather?
It's state basketball time. But that sucks because, all three Division I baseball teams and softball as well, they're all supposed to open this week. Now, I think you get to next weekend, they're okay. But Omaha, Nebraska is a big deal on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And that was the only time that they had each other scheduled this year.
Yeah. Maybe we'll
hopefully they'll find a spot.
Yeah, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, because I got an alert on my phone when my internet was working this morning in the Casa that they were under a winter storm watch. I don't need that.
We don't need it.
We don't need that.
After last week, we don't need it.
We
don't need the back and forth.
But I told you, Gary. I told you last week. He was celebrating. Peter, you weren't here. He was celebrating the start of spring. He was saying,
not real spring.
No,
spring.
you're like, I'm like, it's coming. It's going to come
spring.
back. I kept telling you it was going to come back, and you kept denying it. You said, out of sight, out of mind. I do not care. I don't want to touch the money. I don't want to talk about the fact that it might be back to being cold. I told you it was coming. I told you it was on the horizon, and there wasn't anything on the radar. We didn't say that it was going to happen. No one knew it was coming, but bang. That just happens, man. It's the Midwest. It's weather. You know better.
No.
You know better.
No, greenhouse effect, whatever that's going on.
We
don't have winter around here
anymore.
You
said it was over, and I told you it was coming, and it's here.
Never said it was over. I said I like fake spring, and you said no. It's going to happen one more time, and it looks like it's going to happen tomorrow, which sucks.
It's scary
because I was looking forward to because I'm doing the game, the Omaha Nebraska game.
So I was probably going to get a ticket and go, but
I was going to get a ticket and go. Isn't that a little?
I was like, conference tourneys don't really kick off.
That's the worst too.
Wednesday.
When a game is in limbo, especially a baseball game where you do preparations for it, it would be your first of the year, right? For Omaha,
it's the first
baseball,
home game, yep.
So it's just like you're waiting to do it, and you're like, you're preparing for it, and then now all of a sudden, 24 hours before the game, you're like, you don't even know if it's going to happen.
Maybe for Nebraska baseball, it's a good thing they're not going to.
Yeah, probably need a reset.
Rough weekend for Nebraska athletics. Rough weekend for ball around here, unless you are the Creighton women, the Nebraska women, the Omaha men.
Yep.
One of the most disappointing losses in the Fred Hoiberg era happened on Saturday at PBA. We'll get into that. Also, there's disappointment about what happened and the effort and the no-show that happened in Cincinnati for Blue Nebraska. Coming up later on the show, Evan Bland will stop by. We'll try and figure out where Nebraska baseball is after 3 weeks in, 4-6. Dropped the game to Kansas State yesterday. Boy, they make a home run hire with Pete Hughes as their baseball coach in Manhattan. Also, Jacob Bigelow.
Yep.
Lots to talk on hoops. 13 days from Selection Sunday. One is definitely in. How many more? From the 402. The lineup brought to you by the Roofers at John Higgins Weather Guide. Peter is in for Jimmy. There's Matt. I'm Gary. It's Gary and Matt in 1620 The Zone. Well, I just realized something. With the conference tournaments for the Power Fives, they're going to be over St. Patty's Day weekend.
Ooh.
Go crazy, SEC fans.
Yeah.
Too bad the Big Ten this year's on Chicago.
That'd be incredible. Oh my
No,
God. That would
Chicago and no cool wheel logo.
That would be hell if people had to find their way to get to the Big Ten tournament while also navigating through what is St. Patty's Day, which I have never been to, and I will one day go. But you only bring it up that St. Patrick's Day. I mean, it is the ultimate booze bag in terms of just delinquency, degeneracy, going from Irish bar to Irish bar. They do the river green. It is absolutely ridiculous. To put a big event, maybe that's why they didn't do the Big Ten conference tournament in Chicago this year, because they knew it would be an absolute hellhole if they were to do that while St. Patty's Day is going on.
When I was a active bar hopper,
Yeah,
I hated St. Patrick's Day.
amateur hour.
I still do. It's the night before Thanksgiving and St. Patty's Day. I avoid like the plague.
It's amateur night.
Amateur drinking.
Well, I get
Amateur
people like,
drinking.
I guess I don't ever go out. And so I got to go out on these 2 days and I make an absolute fool of myself, and you ruin it for everybody else that, has a few welts on the belt,
Yeah,
so to speak.
that is a few notches on the belt, if you will. That has a lot of experience in doing what you are just only doing as a novelty on these 2 nights. There gets to a point in St. Patrick's Day and the day before Thanksgiving where it's just too many people, too many people.
What's do you remember the name of that Irish bar in Haymarket?
McKinney's.
McKinney. Okay, I was blanking on the name. Went there. I only truly went out in college on Patty's Day one time, and it was to there, and it was horrendous.
Oh,
It was-
McKinney's does it right though. They have the nice tent, and they bring out this little like RV, and they got like green beer. It's
we
pretty.
got there
McKinney's
early
pretty
enough.
good
I was able to enjoy it for a little bit, and then it just got way too.
Yeah, way
crowded.
too crowded. I'm not a shoulder to shoulder
No,
drinker.
I do
cannot
not.
drink.
That's not fun. For
I
me.
cannot drink while I'm shoulder to shoulder with people. I do not want to be smelling what you ate for breakfast. Okay, I want to be in a nice tavern, nice and chill, not a lot of people. I told you, I like my bars with a lot of wood and like it's been saved by before it's been saved by John Taffer. St. Patrick's Day? Hell no.
We used to do remotes on St. Patty's Day because
That is crazy.
Omaha's a pretty good St. Patty's Day
I
town. We have
bet.
a parade.
Yeah.
But we used to. So Clancy's Pub used to be over in my neighborhood at 72nd and Pacific, and now that block looks completely different. But it was a good Irish bar that on that day they did it up well. They would have outdoor tents, they'd have seating,
Yeah.
they'd bring in porta potties or as I like to call them, kaibos, and it would just be it'd be insane. I mean, there would be like Omaha Scanner would just stand outside of Clancy's and just they would tweet. But we used to do remotes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the morning show, but when Nick Baugh was here, they did middays because back then Nick was 11 to 2. Nick got sent. It wasn't Clancy's. Was it? It might have been Three Irishmen.
Oh, okay.
So he got sent out there, and Nick's pretty serious.
Yeah.
He likes to have fun. But by the time he got to the place, and I'm pretty sure it was that location, people were trashed.
Oh yeah.
And so they made it's March Madness, and Nick is in his wheelhouse, man. Nick wants to break down the 16-1 game, and if there's a chance that a 16 is going to win. And there are people, you can hear him in the background, but then there are people coming up to him that are like, "Hey, hey, Nick Baugh!" Oh, there are very few times I've seen Nick as ticked off as he was.
How do you think the Jays are going to do?
He came back here and he was like, "Never again, never again." And you know what? It was true. We haven't been, and this is about 8-9 years that we have not been out on St. Patty's Day on this radio station, because it used to be
Probably for the best.
used to be like, "Hey man, we're the zone. We got to be where the people are." And Nick said, "No, the people are idiots on St. Patty's Day. It is not good for live radio." Now, it was kind of funny because I wasn't involved,
Sure.
but Nick was like, "You know what? I want to talk about Dana Altman, and I got some other Dana that is talking to me about something else."
Some other Dana talking about another Dana that's not Dana Altman. I think that doing like a St. Patrick's Day remote would be incredible, like in June or in July. Like if the holiday was during that time, That would be a great remote setting because you know what? Not a lot is going on. There's only baseball, right? We're too far away from the buildup of Husker football and other college football things to really like go into it. To just have people sit down, just have drunk people sit down, grab a microphone. Just Peter will be hovering over the dump button the entire time, just in case something goes
Well,
wrong.
we do.
That would be enjoyable.
We do it around here. It's called Saturdays after a Nebraska loss. It's just a bunch of drunk people calling Big Red overreaction.
That is a good point. But no, I mean, I don't know if like in the heat of the NCAA tournament when college basketball is really turning up and where the drama has never been higher, or whether or not your team will be selected or if there are potential bid stealers who will steal your dream away. I don't think that is the ideal time to have, Joe from the South Side come in just absolutely crunked talking about, the people that he's trying to drink with at Clancy's.
We had when the NCAA tournament was here, I don't remember what exact year, but it was over St. Patty's weekend. That was pretty fun because I think KU was here. That was,
oh yeah.
I say that I thoroughly enjoyed myself. That was a good time.
That would probably be, I mean, if we're talking about overlapping holiday and sport events, I mean, that's got to be at close to the top, right? I mean,
well, that in minor league, Major League Baseball teams in the Grapefruit League and the Cactus League, they will request to play on St. Patty's Day. Like the Boston Red Sox, I remember going to these meetings and you're putting your schedule together, and this is like in late November. The Red Sox always had the first pick, and they, like some people like to open at home, some people don't like to finish at home. The Red Sox were always, we need to be at home on St. Patrick's Day because they go all green.
Yeah.
So
that's
like
awesome.
in baseball, like you go to spring training, St. Patty's Day and spring training on that day, not bad.
Yeah.
I always voted for the Twins not to be playing on that day.
Why? Because you wanted the day off to go and
I might have find my way over to JetBlue Park on St. Patty's Day. Let the Red Sox do it upright. The Twins don't need to be we don't need to be working on St. Patty's Day.
Hey, I will take, if someone wants to email me a guide to an Omaha St. Patty's Day.
Oh, that's a good shout.
I will do it. You know what? We'll do content. Put a GoPro on me for St. Patrick's Day. I wouldn't mind. Eat that up.
A GoPro on you?
Yeah, right on the chest. GoPro right on the chest, just walking around. Matt Drinks the Town, Part 1. It's our new series.
John writes in. Good morning, John.
Good morning, John.
He says, St. Patty's Day in Chicago, never. Remember the fugitive got loose and lost in the crowd in the streets were not safe? He said he didn't kill his wife. And Tommy Lee Jones didn't care. He goes, oh, by the way, I'm in Chicago today for the Blackhawk game. I'll send you a couple of pictures. All right. Thank you, John.
I saw a little bit off topic, but, Gene Hackman passed away. My father, big Gene Hackman fan. Watch The Package. You ever see the Package with Gene Hackman?
I have not seen it.
It's a great movie. You would like it. Incredible. Based in Chicago. It's it was fully shot in Chicago. And at one
does it rank up next to Ferris Bueller, which was also shot in Chicago?
No, but what was really, really weird is that in the beginning of the movie, they are in Russia. Okay. They're supposed to be in Russia. And my dad,
be careful.
It looked
Careful
like
where
Russia.
You're going.
My dad spoiled it for me and was like, yeah, by the way, this was shot in Winnetka, like 15 minutes away from where you grew up. And I'm looking at the scene, and I know what the trees in Winnetka look like, and I know what the forest looks like, and it ruined the scenery of the movie for me. Like I couldn't get over the fact that like the richest suburban neighborhood in America was made to be out to look like Mother Russia during the Cold War. It was absolutely ridiculous.
Saturday at 67th Center was really, really good. And the rail yard, not so good in Lincoln.
Yeah.
Not so good at the Cintas Center in Cincinnati. That Skyline chili tastes like crap. I don't know why people die on that hill out there. That thing is it's soup.
Yeah, I was about to say it's more watery. Isn't that the claim to fame?
But man, just like people around here, like the hill they'll die on for a food take that is local is Runza. People in Cincinnati are passionate about their Skyline chili. But I like the Cincinnatians, which I believe you call them. They're like, you know what? It's Skyline chili. They're everywhere in Cincinnati, but it's not what you think. So I'm going back through my inbox, in the Equitable Bank inbox, trying to find the first Zach Legomaniac email.
Yep.
All right. So the Nebraska game started at 1:05 against Minnesota.
I think it was around 2:20.
Yeah, 2:13. I'm looking at it right now. Crap hole program. I edited that part.
Yep.
LOL, effing losers, and get Hoiberg the F out of Lincoln because he's washed up. Let me see here. I believe there was a follow-up to this email.
There always is a follow-up. There always is at least 2 Zach emails. There's never just one Zach email.
All right. LOL, can't believe this blank hole program lost to that garbage Minnesota team. And the fact that this atrociously poorly coached team thought having Gomer Morgan take an off-balance 3-point shot with the game on the line shows how stupid these players are and how stupid Fred Hoiberg is. Oh, it gets better.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care how nicely he can make speeches to the media. He's a moron. Jesus. Because he can't communicate to players well enough for them not to play like, I hate this word and I'm not going to mention it. Okay.
Was that
There's a lot of emotion in there.
Yeah.
That was he had time to think about it because that email didn't come until 3:42 on Saturday.
was the Morgan shot reference the final shot of the game where he had to shoot it?
Yes, that one.
Where he did not have a
Zach
choice.
is not a Morgan guy. Zach,
Yeah,
they're
I know
almost,
he's not. Huge.
There almost
just-
is a reference every time of Andrew Morgan and the Zach.
I'm just going to
email.
say, first time meeting Zach, he's not a Hoiberg guy either. Yeah.
Yeah,
Zach's pretty passionate about his
he is.
ball. I don't know where you want to start about what happened on Saturday. It's one of the worst losses in the Fred Hoiberg era. It opens up the door to have a serious conversation. Shot quality had Nebraska was projected to win that game by 20. They lost. But the ending of the game, which kind of was like the flip of Monday night against Michigan, where you needed a bucket.
Yeah.
One team got a bucket and the other looked a little bit lost. That last sequence where you lose the shooter who, I don't care if he had not been shooting very well. By the way, he almost ended up at Omaha this year.
Really?
Because Chris Crutchfield recruited him to Oregon, and Omaha was pretty aggressive when he got into the portal from Oregon.
Yeah.
So he ends up at Minnesota. And he hadn't been playing very well. But if you're not playing very well, put Nebraska on the schedule, and more than likely you're going to
Not a joke.
So
Okay.
he's a hot shooter, and you recognize when somebody's got the ball. Shooter, you'll hear coaches holler that a lot. You don't find him. And then the shot at the end of the game credit to Morgan. That thing almost fell. But still, that's not the guy that I want shooting at the end. The last scenario, and there's 39 other minutes in that game on Saturday to just dissect, is it shows you they are such a mess. That last possession for Minnesota, well, just the ride of Nebraska grabbing the lead, Minnesota hitting the 3, and then Nebraska missing at 3, just shows you Nebraska's a mess. Nebraska is a mess. But you can't quit them. You know why? Because if they win tomorrow night in Columbus, they're back.
So
welcome to the life of a Nebraska basketball fan.
how many times have we done this year? As soon as I think I'm out, they pull me back in. I mean, we just keep doing this over and over again. On Shelby's last bracket, which was, I think it was updated around 5:40 yesterday, Nebraska was the very, very last team in. Ohio State, the second team out. You called it last week. This is going to be essentially, hey, kind of playing you're in. Like either team wins the game. It's a massive swing in who essentially at this point gets to go to Dayton to try and win a game and get themselves into the field of 64. We talked about this conversation.
They lost to Minnesota.
They lost to Minnesota.
You wouldn't have not known in that game, like, sense of urgency. It's March 1. You win, and you're probably in the tournament, and you don't have to have a tension convention. If you would have watched those two teams and not known the records, you would have thought that Minnesota was on the cusp of clinching a spot in the NCAA tournament. They lost to Minnesota. Minnesota at home, a team that I thought was done. Ben Johnson got beat by Northwestern, Penn State back-to-back. He was dejected. He was depressed. Man, one side played hard for the coach. The other, they don't like each other.
I'm all for benefit of the doubt and finishing out the year, but I do not see a way out of this for them because
hold on, Peter.
I
tomorrow night,
I saw the
Peter,
video.
tomorrow night.
The video of Juwan Gary post game leaving the court is the most dejected I have ever seen that man in all of his years here.
Minnesota scored to begin the game, okay, and it was the first time in 76 minutes of basketball that they had a lead. Okay. That's how bad that they were playing heading into Pinnacle Bank Arena, a place that they hadn't won in since 2012. And Nebraska's poor play gave Minnesota all the confidence and energy and momentum in the world they needed to go and dominate the first 25 minutes of the game. And we've talked about roster construction and all that sorts of things. What it really comes down to is just player inconsistency and how it is pigeonholed Fred Hoiberg and the fact that every game he's got to essentially guess, hey, what lineup is going to play well today? Like, what lineup is going to look like a really, really good team? And he's just got to literally just mix up the lineup the entire game until he finds the right combination, which could be any sort of combination of any player that this team has. Because you can go down the line of this team and be like, he's had a really good game before. He's had a really good game before. And then that same person, for every incredible Aaron Eulis game, an incredible Riley Wooster game, and good Berke Buchtenjel game, there's been an equal to or bad game from those players as well. And so it's just like this inconsistency has just made this team basically have to. There's a reason why this team has always had to come back from deficits and puts themselves in holes. And it always seems like they are playing from behind in terms of their offensive efficiency to begin the game, because it just boils down to the fact that they are so consistent. You just don't know what side of the coin you're going to get of not just the team in general, but each individual player.
Yeah, I think the coaches don't like the players don't like the coaches, the players don't like each other. Like, they're having conversations about things that if they're having them on January 3rd, you're like, okay,
yeah,
we can get that fixed. And if it's March 3rd and you're having conversations and it's like shots aren't going in, okay. But when you're on March 3rd and you're having conversations about effort,
their last 4 games, okay, so dating back to Northwestern, that absolute debacle that they shouldn't have won. They should not have won that Northwestern game, okay? But they won, and they came back and they got it done. But they played terrible offense to start in the Penn State game. They never were able to recover. They played terrible offense against Michigan. They never recovered, and the only reason they were in that game is because they played absolutely incredible defense, and they played terrible offense against Minnesota to start. And then all of a sudden, Fred Hoiberg's like just putting lineups together and finds out, all right, I guess Asij and Morgan, Williams, Gary, and Hoiberg can play together. Like, okay, I guess this is what we're going to roll with. And they rolled with it, and they brought him back into the game, and then they weren't able to close it out because, and it happened earlier in the year as well. I think it might have been against Rutgers, where they came back at home. Like Rutgers was controlling the game the entire time, and then they finally came back, and they had all the momentum in the world, and then they just kept them in there. They didn't close the door on Minnesota. They didn't close the door on Rutgers. They didn't take that momentum and make it into a 6, 7, 8 point lead, which they could have done, which good teams do. They allowed it to get down to the end of the game where, the guy who came into the game shooting 24% from the 3-point line and left the game shooting 29% from the 3-point line ended up being open on the last shot of the game.
They're a mess. But but when you lose a game like that, you open the door to have a serious discussion about where Nebraska basketball is.
Yes.
You win a game, you can avoid it a little bit longer, but you lose a game at home where the fans wanted that win more than the players did. That's not good. That's not good. You open the discussion now of what does Nebraska basketball look like moving forward. That doesn't immediately have a tone from me that, Fred's out. But you have to have a serious discussion when you have a game like that with what is on the line, playing a team that, Minnesota's won 4 straight on the road. But if you look at their last 2 performances,
they were
down
awful.
and out. But that's also, I think this is a very entitled basketball team. I think they were like, we're okay. We're at home. Crowd's going to be here. You know what? They're going to cheer for us. We're going to beat Minnesota. That's an entitled bunch. You know what? And they got, it always come back. I mean, you can't mess with the sports karma. Nebraska almost pulled it out, but they got what they deserved. And now we deserve to have a conversation about what Nebraska basketball looks like going forward. We can't kick it down the road anymore. You win, you can kick it down the road. And you know what? And the crazy thing, and I keep alluding to this, because you can't quit them, but at some point you will.
Yeah.
They have a game tomorrow night, and I imagine they will be an underdog, and most people will be like, they're not going to win. If they win, they're probably in the NCAA tournament, which would be a stretch of 6-10 basketball over the last 16. It's the life of a Nebraska basketball fan that at some point the wheel has to stop. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's the one sport where I always say you start the game and you're all in. Under 12 media timeout, you're all out.
Yeah.
Halftime, you're right back in.
But
second half, you're like, yeah, this is awful. And then at the end of the game, something happens. And you're like, man, this is why I love PBA. PBA, when it's banging, man, this is the place to be. Love you, GBR. Let's go, Fred for life. Bring back Casey.
Isn't that the team, though, too? You talk about the fan perspective. You're all in at the 20, then you're all out at the under the 12, and then you're in the second half, then you're all back in. It feels like the team plays that way as well, that they're all in.
Definitely don't play hard for 40 minutes at
yeah,
times.
No. I mean, and also, too, that game against Minnesota came down to the fact that you just cannot play bad basketball for 28 minutes and then expect to win a game. You just can't do it consistently.
Because you think you're someone, you think you're a team that you are not. And they've done that this year where they've gotten away from their identity. But the fact that it's March 3rd and a discussion about effort and energy is still going on.
It's disgusting.
I can have that on January 3rd and I go, okay, we still got a lot of the year. We're still trying to figure out the pieces. You can't have that discussion on March 3rd and think that this is going to end well.
When everything's on the line.
Well, the thing is, too, Gary, you talk about you can't have the discussion on March 3rd. They basically did have the discussion, on January 3rd. They basically did have the discussion in January about that. When they were going on that 6-game skid, what was the conversation? Attitude, effort, defensive, grimy, identity. They were having these same convos, these same talks months ago. And we have gone through to the point where now we've gone into crunch time, and those conversations are still happening. Those problems haven't been solved. Who is that an indictment of? It's an indictment on the coach and the fact that we've been able to identify what the problem of this team was months ago in Big Ten play. And we've moved forward to the point where you've still played yourself into an advantageous position to make it to the NCAA tournament. But when push came to shove and you were supposed to win games that you were favored in and that you were playing worse teams and teams that had no momentum, they lost to Penn State. Penn State hadn't won a game in 6 weeks. Okay, you lost to Minnesota. Minnesota had lost to two of the worst teams in the Big Ten up to that point.
I know.
And now you allow it to happen, and it's the third time this year, Gary, where they come off of a bad stretch of basketball into Pinnacle Bank Arena thinking, okay, because the crowd's going to be juiced and we haven't lost here in quite some time, we're going to be able to win. And they go out and they lay a duck. They did it against Rutgers. They did it against USC. They did it against Minnesota. And when they played those three teams, Rutgers was faltering when they were playing Rutgers, and they lost to them. USC was faltering when they played USC. They lost to them. Minnesota was faltering when they played them. They lost to them. It's incredible how you go ahead and you beat Illinois and UCLA on the road or at home, but you can't beat those three teams who are playing terrible basketball at home. And we're talking about the same things we were talking about early in the year. It's
you know what else
beyond frustrating.
You know what else is wild about this year?
Beyond frustrating.
So they win tomorrow night. They're in the NCAA tournament. They eliminate Ohio State. I mean, we may live in a world where Indiana makes the tournament and Ohio State and Nebraska do not, but that's why they call it March Madness. You know what is helping, in my opinion, Nebraska right now to keep their head above water?
No. What is it?
A true road win in Omaha.
Yeah. That's a great point.
That Creighton true road win, not a neutral site game, a true road win is like right now still has a pulse.
Oh,
still has a pulse that keeps their resume looking at least okay. The eye test of the way they're playing right now says they're not an NCAA team.
No.
Their stuff on paper still keeps them as a mention of a last four in type team. And that Creighton road win back in November looks good on that resume.
You can make an argument.
They win tomorrow night. They're in the tournament. But how do we feel about tomorrow
You can
night?
make an argument it's the most important win they have on their resume because it validates their weak non-con. They played one strong non-con game in that Creighton game, and they won.
Think we can find a person that thinks Nebraska basketball will win tomorrow night?
I think so.
Maybe.
You know who that person is? They'll be like, Gary, I've been a Nebraska basketball fan my whole life. As angry as I was walking out of PBA on Saturday, I've been through this life. It wouldn't surprise me if they went to Columbus and won. You might call me crazy. You might have me committed. But you know what? That's the life of a Nebraska basketball fan. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. We got plenty of time to talk about that before. What do they play at 8 o'clock tomorrow night?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're all watching Blizzard roll through here.
Yeah, no kidding.
50-mile-an-hour winds.
Hey, not on the same stakes because they're in the tournament, but also a big game tomorrow night for Creighton. in Newark against Seton Hall after their no juice game. There were a couple of
Zero.
things that Creighton's not playing very well right now.
Overall, like just as a collective team, they're not playing well right now.
All right, one of the books a little bit later. Evan Bland will join us. Jacob Bigelow as well on this Monday. It's March. It's madness. And 13 days from now, we will be dissecting a bracket, talking about the future. 1620 The Zone. I want some positive Nebraska basketball news.
They sell beer at the games now.
Good thing they do.
Yeah, if there has ever been a year and where it was needed to sell beer or wine or spirits at Pinnacle Bank Arena, it's been this year. What's the positive news?
I just saw. When did he? Oh, this is yesterday. I was looking at Lenardi's bracket.
Yeah.
Lenardi has a face for radio. Last four in, he has Nebraska.
So rude.
First four out, he still has Xavier. Oh, Xavier looked pretty good on Saturday.
They did.
But he has Oklahoma in.
Really?
Well, think about it.
I have never seen I don't even know really how this ends up on my feed particularly. I don't really engage with their stuff that much, but I haven't seen a fan base so upset at their staff than Oklahoma basketball this year. Their fans have been like Porter out for half the season, I think.
Well, Porter is really good in November and December.
Yeah.
When they get to the conference play.
Yeah, I think it's because they started pretty well, but I think Oklahoma fans in general are just sour on this whole SEC experience so far.
13-0 to begin the year, and then I know that about a week ago he was like 23-45 in conference play. Now dating from the Big 12, into the SEC. I mean, that's just not a good record.
Well, think about it in that conference, which they're going to get at least 13 teams into the NCAA tournament, and they have a couple that are legit win the national championship. I don't care about matchup teams. So the Big Ten and the ACC, the bottom three teams don't make your conference tournament. I think as of this morning, Nebraska would play Minnesota again.
I can look.
Wouldn't that be the first game out of the box in Indy? I think that's the 12-13. But think if the SEC didn't, if they had where the bottom three didn't make their conference tournament, OU wouldn't make their conference tournament. But yet OU is in quite a few brackets. Last four buys, Lenardi has Indiana, Ohio State. So essentially tomorrow night is an elimination game in Columbus.
So if you're looking at Shelby's bracket right now, last four in is Nebraska, Oklahoma, Boise State, Arkansas. First four out, Xavier, Ohio State, Texas, UNC. The fact that UNC has been able to stick around. I mean, you've talked about it. We've talked about it the last couple of weeks. I mean, this bubble is historically weak in terms of the fact that you have multiple Power 5 double-digit loss teams who are in contention in order to still not only just make the play-in, but make the field of 64. You look at these. So if you're looking at Shelby's bracket, Indiana's a 10 seed at 18-11. Baylor's a 10 seed at 17-12. Georgia's a 10 seed at 18-11. West Virginia's at 11 seed at 17-12. I mean, those records aren't great for Power 5 teams, and yet they are firmly not only just in 68, but they're in the field of 64. So Nebraska, definitely still has a chance to make the NCAA tournament, but they've been helped out so heavily by the fact that this year for college basketball, whatever the reason may be, is so incredibly top heavy. I mean, we're talking about seedings where you kind of get to like the 8 slots and you're looking at teams where you're like, okay, they're playing good basketball now, but you've seen some really, really poor basketball from Illinois. You've seen some poor basketball from UConn. Until yesterday.
In Ann Arbor.
Oh, yeah, I know. Give them credit. I mean, they 3-point barrage and they punched Michigan in the mouth and they kept them there the entire time. But like,
I've quit them, by the way. I am not coming back.
Now you quit them?
No,
now you're not coming back?
Remember a week and a half ago, after Duke, I'm like, they are like one of the biggest if teams, if they stay healthy. Because when they are healthy and they have everybody available,
they are so good.
Their upside is probably higher than anybody in the Big Ten, in my opinion. But they've also got to shoot. They also got to shoot better from 3-point range than they got to shoot better than 30%. When they're healthy, they got a pretty good team. They got a pretty good team. They haven't been healthy that much this year.
But I do think they are. The whole Boswell and Yakachonis like dynamic it doesn't really work. I just feel like they don't
yesterday.
It worked yesterday,
and
but I'm just
you're
saying
ready to put
overall,
Michigan on fraud alert.
I'm not denying the fact that Illinois, like you said, when they have Ivicic, when they have, Humrichis and Riley and Yakachonis and Boswell, like playing high quality basketball. Yes, they're a good team. No one is ever going to forget what they did to a ranked Oregon team at Oregon, right? That was absolutely ridiculous. And you know what? They did it yesterday against Michigan. But it's once again, I'm never really going to call a team that is that inconsistent and that can beat a ranked team by 20 as easily as they can lose to a ranked team by 40.
That's why I call them the if team.
They are an if
team.
They're
the if team.
They are. I think
if they're healthy, if they shoot threes, they might be a second weekend team.
Butts and candies and nuts and unicorns and everything would be great, and that's just kind of what Illinois
What do you got against Porzingis?
What
do you got against Jokic?
Okay, by the way, can we stop calling every tall guy who can moderately shoot a unicorn? All right, how many unicorns? There's only supposed to be one unicorn. Okay, the fact that we got now 9 dudes that we're calling unicorns, we called Bull a unicorn.
Now that was that was a
misfire
because he was a legendary creature.
What, Bull or unicorns?
Bull being a unicorn.
Bull can't even get off the bench. Is Bull in the G League? Is Bull even in the NBA?
No. He's playing for the Suns.
Yeah.
He's playing?
No, nobody's playing for the Suns because Ant said
the
goodbye
Suns
to
are
him
a
last
team,
night.
but are they playing?
They got embarrassed last night at home by Ant. Yeah, he's with the Suns. He actually is like on a little good stretch here.
Oh, good for Bull then. Not a unicorn.
So okay, so if you don't want to call him a unicorn, or his dad was more of a unicorn, would you call him a Pokemon or a Smurf?
I would call him a tall, lanky basketball player who shows above average athleticism. That's what I would call him. I think there is only one unicorn, and that is Kevin Durant. Everybody else is just stretch.
What about
force.
Jokic?
Jokic is
okay.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call Jokic a unicorn. I would just call him the modern day Wilt Chamberlain. With just how
he's pretty committed. I think he's loyal to his wife.
I'm not in that regard. I'm talking about
how
the
does Wilt not
offensive
have
end.
more kids? That is the most amazing thing.
I think he lied about it. There's no way that occurred. He either lied about it or were there NDAs back in the 70s and 80s?
I don't think so. And I also think there were like fruit baskets and things like that. Gift baskets.
I don't know how that works. There wasn't really social media for any of Wilt's baby mamas could go on Twitter to call him out about the fact that he's not paying child support or anything like that.
Denver, by the way, just 2-6 against contenders or perceived contenders. They got beat by Boston. There was a local priest. I remember hearing this story, speaking of unicorns. So that's why I threw Pokemons and Smurfs in there.
Sure.
He said they are satanic.
Pokemons are?
Well, this priest, he was a local priest. I don't know that he's a priest anymore. He believed that unicorns, Smurfs, and Pokemons are satanic.
That is a really weird classification for three very different things.
So the summer of Pokemon Go was not his thing, though.
No,
is what I
surmise from let's just break this down. Smurfs was a comic book / movie. Pokemon was just a cartoon show, and unicorns are a mythical book creature. To pair those together just doesn't make any sense.
Well, unicorns in medieval time, I believe, represent Jesus.
Okay. So then the priest said it was. See, that just doesn't. It's just a weird classification. I don't look at Blastoise and see a Satan. Are you not? Are you well versed in Pokemon?
Is Charizard satanic?
Do you know Pokemon?
No, I know the craze of going to catch Pokemons and people just wandering around a park by my house and going places to try and catch Pokemons on their phone. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna maybe go shoot some hoops. Maybe play catch with a baseball.
Gary was the go and touch grass. Go and touch grass, kid.
I was trying to. It was like I remember that summer. It was like fascinating.
Yeah,
if Gary had seen me that summer.
So you were going around town catching Pokemons?
And this is from someone who wasn't even that big of a Pokemon fan. I was out late, driving, going to the stops. I was riding my bike, and I discovered that if you ride your bike, it treated it as you walking.
Yes, so very good.
So I was going on insane amounts of bike rides just to hatch the eggs.
Yeah.
And
the eggs is how you get the best Pokemon, right, Peter? If you have a 10-kilometer egg, that's how you're going to get those mythical Pokemon.
And this part I am a little bit ashamed about. I spent well into the triple digits of real American dollars.
Wait, what'd you spend money on? You bought eggs?
I just bought supplies instead
That's
of
crazy.
Yeah, no,
I never spent
I'm-
money on
no,
it.
I-
Here,
I'm not
let me
proud of it.
open up
I'm
my
not proud of it.
Pokemon Go
What
app
happened
here.
to this craze? Did all the Pokemons
I-
get
I
claimed?
kind of
I think
dissipated.
I think the nerds stopped wanting to walk around everywhere to play a
Too
video
much
game.
fitness.
Too much
Too
fitness for
much
the nerds
fitness.
when it
For-
comes to playing Pokemon.
For the record, Peter is not a nerd.
No, well,
You just grouped him.
Peter and I both were playing Pokemon Go. Peter's also. It's hard to not say that Peter isn't a nerd when he's currently wearing a
That
Darth
is-
Maul Star
My
Wars zip up.
25th anniversary.
And if
Phantom
anything,
Menace.
hey, there's nothing wrong with
Wow,
being a
you're
nerd.
just Pokemons and Star Wars fans. You're just grouping today.
You're talking to a Pokemon and Star Wars fan.
Okay, so you're
Okay.
a nerd.
I went out. So I actually had a place that I lived right by that was there had a lot of Pokestops where you get all the Pokeballs and the little, things that you needed and the Stardust.
These
and
are
all that
different
stuff.
from the place you go to get something to eat.
No. You just walk. It was just Pokestop. You're talking about. I'm trying to log into my Pokemon Go account right now so I can show
Like if
you
I go
my
to
incredible
Wingstop, I'm gonna
Pokemon.
get wings. If I go to a Pokestop, I'm
You
gonna
get Pokeballs.
Okay.
Yeah, you
Some
can get an
Poke.
Ultra Ball or a Mega Ball, or you can get some
course you can.
perfume in order to make sure that you can catch a Pokemon more easily.
So they're you lure them with perfume.
Yes, you do. You lure them with perfume. It's like a girlfriend. And so, you get it, you catch the Pokemon. I went to DC. I actually
That's
caught a Gyarados at a DC at the Thomas
Oh,
Jefferson
okay.
Memorial. Just standing right there on TJ's head. And I went up and I got a Gyarados. It was a great catch.
I did brag to.
We're talking about food.
We're talking about
Is this a
Pokemon.
sandwich? Okay.
Yeah,
I-
no. That's a Euro.
Okay.
You might be thinking of. A Gyarados is an aqua water type Pokemon.
I did brag to some of my friends because that summer,
doing?
the summer when it got really popular, is the summer I went on a school trip to Europe,
Yes.
and I got the regional exclusive Mr. Mime.
Oh, yes.
It's only available in Europe, and so I
Yes.
sent a screenshot to my friends, and I was like, "Bet you'll never get this
Yes.
guy." It
You
was an insane summer.
you ever catch a Psyduck before?
Oh yeah, I think once.
Probably at Sandy's when I was in college.
A Oh, okay. Is that like a sorority joke?
Continue on.
Okay. Well,
I'm just
no,
trying
I
to
mean,
play along here in the Pokemon world.
You would like Pokemon. Catch them all, Gare. Are you a Charizard, a Blastoise,
Hey.
or here? All right, look,
I got
just
enough. I got a big fantasy baseball draft coming up. I got fantasy NASCAR. I don't need fantasy catch things off my phone.
Look at my Pokedex. Look at that.
Oh,
That's
my-
all the Pokemon that I've caught.
What
right
level
there.
did you get to?
I got to level
Seriously.
26.
I think that's
Seriously,
about where I
why do
was.
why do we keep putting the quarter in him?
Okay, yeah, that was my last. That was my
so
last.
I know this
question.
was huge. I just don't understand it. So I
No, it's-
did
it's-
not get into it. But
it's
why
kind
did
of
it? Why
insane.
did it fade out?
It just got boring and just like it was a phenomenon, and then just people got good at it, and people accomplished what they needed to accomplish, and then they stopped playing
Okay.
it.
Personally, the
It was
prospect
huge.
of
I do
going
know it
out.
was huge that summer.
Yeah, no, it's just one of those things where it's like, people did what they needed to do, and then it just got a little bit old, a little bit too quickly.
Specifically here, it's fun in the summer, but then you get to winter, it's like, I don't want to go outside.
Do the Pokemons come out in the winter, or do they hibernate?
There is
They go
like
south?
you're more likely
They
to
fly
catch
away.
you're more likely to catch certain Pokemon in certain types of weather, depending on where you're located. So if you're by the water,
Seriously,
you're more likely to catch more water type Pokemon.
do they leave the water and come on the land?
They sometimes they do, yeah, but like you're more likely. It's all about likelihood.
So there are amphibious Pokemons.
Yes, there is. There is by water and by sea, or by water and by land Pokemon.
The more you know.
The
No,
more you know.
I followed it from afar, and it was a huge thing that summer.
It was.
Dookie Clint, who got to be happy that ESPN is shoving the Duke North Carolina
Yeah,
game down our throat this
Ugh.
week,
yeah.
where game day is going to be. I don't know how many people watch ESPN college basketball game day. You ever see ratings for that show?
No, but I
but
don't
they're-
even
they're-
know who's on it. Jay Williams, right? That's the
I
only...
can't say I've watched a single one this season.
I-
Neither have
uh,
I.
It's who's on it?
Who?
Malika Andrews is on it.
Okay, she's great.
I believe is
Is it Billis? Is Billis on it?
yes, Billis
I feel
is
like
on it.
yeah, Jay's on it.
Unfortunately, there's too many people on the show that dislike college basketball. Instead of
Let me see
promoting college basketball,
Is-
they should be covering the NBA.
I was about to say, isn't that a problem with the NBA? There are too many people who talk about the NBA who just don't like
Yeah.
basketball as a sport anymore and like to revel in the past and just complain about what used to be and what is.
Clint says, Harry Potter is considered satanic.
I don't know about that.
I'm just going to group everything as satanic.
Satanic until proven otherwise.
And on that note, it was really cool last night. I was at the Youth for Christ banquet at Embassy Suites. So thank you very much. That was a really, really good banquet.
I'm pretty sure J.K.
Trying to
Rowling
sneak
is
that
like
in.
I don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure she's like a devout Christian and wrote Harry
That's
Potter.
that's a way to put it.
Yeah, well,
She's
that's-
been more than
that's-
active on social
yeah.
media.
I'm
years.
not going to go into the pool of J.K. Rowling because I really do enjoy my job, Peter. But
Andrea Carter, not Malika Andrews, hosts.
Oh,
NBA.
okay.
Yeah,
And by the
okay,
way,
yeah.
married to Dave McMenamin, who
Yes,
covers.
good for Dave.
Yeah, did not know that. Andrea Carter, who is really, really good, and I'm glad they're expanding not just women's basketball, but she's the one on that set that like loves college basketball. Now Billis does, but Billis kind of has gone into the weeds. So, but they're going to Duke, North Carolina. They're shoving that down our throat again, even though there are other games.
There's
to
got to
go
be
to.
better games.
Well, they're making it. You know, like,
I know it's a ratings thing.
it's a business decision.
yeah.
Travis Scott is in the ring when Cena turns heel. They go
That's
to Duke,
so
North
cool.
Carolina. Everything is about business. Everything is about business.
Big
Now I got a business deal for you. You want some positivity that came out of Pinnacle Bank Arena on Saturday?
Yes.
I know I'm going to be on. I'm going to be the lone person here. I think the stripe out worked.
It was cool.
So here's my suggestion. They need to try it at Memorial Stadium.
Ooh.
Here's my game. October 4th, Michigan State. It's still going to be warm. People won't be wearing their hunting gear. Do the stripe out at Memorial Stadium. It would be an absolute banger. But if there was one good thing that came out of PBA, it was that the stripe out looked pretty good.
It did look good.
Looked
You
good
would-
on TV.
You would need to do it
You need to start promoting it tomorrow.
tomorrow.
That October 4th, if you're going to the Nebraska-Michigan State football game, that this is your section. This is what you're wearing.
You need to start saving up so you can go and spend $100 on a nice little white pullover or a red sweater or whatnot. But I mean, it's cool. It's fine. It'd be a nice little picture. I don't have any problem with it. I think that
cool.
it'd be cool.
Make
It'd
Nebraska
be
football cool
It's
again.
Football. Is that your goal? We want to put that on hats. Make Nebraska football cool again. Yeah, we should go back to just the old jerseys, just like the sweaty, like pullovers. None of this fancy slicked back polyester Adidas stuff.
Who would have thought that Nebraska football might have the most positive momentum going of the major sports in
If
Lincoln?
you told me that about 3
major
months
male
ago,
sports.
if you told me that 3 months ago, I wouldn't have believed you. After that UCLA loss, if you told me that come March we're going to be talking about Nebraska football having the most positive outlook. In fact, we're going to get tweeted about all the teams in Lincoln, and someone is going to say, on to football season in March. If you told me that after the UCLA loss, I would have thought you were crazy. Would have hit you over the head sideways.
Wow, there's a lot of people that walked out of PBA and said, Nebraska baseball, save us. And then LSU had a big crooked number. And they're like, you know what? I get up Sunday, everything. Okay, thank you, Kansas State. Yeah, I mean,
Just a
this
gut punch after
They
gut
should
punch.
just start spring football right now.
Yeah.
Like to the Nebraska sports fan, they're like, I can't take it anymore. Oh, here's spring football. They should just move up the calendar and just start it just to appease the Nebraska fans.
No, Nebraska,
early garage sale.
The athletic department is going to be like, hey, screw not having a spring game. We're actually going to have 3 spring games. So we have events that people want to travel to in Lincoln in order to watch our teams play.
John writes into the Equitable Bank inbox where they take banking personally. Doug's a little quiet today. His 2 basketball teams lost over the weekend. It's okay, Doug.
It's fine.
Hop on the bus. Hop on the bus. The bus is going up Interstate
Hey,
29 later this week.
We're all Mavericks. We are all Mavericks, hand in hand. We should make a song.
You know what? You can cheer for St. Thomas and you can cheer for Omaha. So you get 2 teams.
You can be a Tommy fan. Would you buy St. Thomas gear if they were to win the tournament and put the
Not-
Mavs into the
not a
NCAA?
chance.
Okay.
Even though I like the radio guy, Corbu, is a really nice guy, but
Yeah.
I am not doing that. St. Thomas is kind of scary because next year they're moving into an arena. Got a little money up there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that I think
And
is
they're
that
going to
the,
and they'll be eligible for the NCAA
is
tournament
that
next year.
the one that they'll share with hockey because
Yep,
when
yep.
hockey moves to
Yeah.
the NCHC.
Yeah. Somebody, husband and wife said, you know what? We got $75 million hanging around. Let's just
What are we
donate
gonna
it.
do with this?
Wouldn't
Let's
that be
donate-
nice, huh?
Hey,
Wouldn't
let's
that be nice
donate
to
it
be
to
like,
St. Thomas and they can build an arena. And all we ask is that you put our name on the outside.
Isn't
Good
it?
deal.
I'm
Isn't
watching
it-
Buffett on CBS Morning Show yesterday. I was
I
waiting for him to sneak in And because they asked him about the economy, and he can't. If he says something about the economy, it carries a ton of weight.
Yeah.
And he can influence markets and decisions. So he he said, he, pushed it off. I wish they would have asked about, what about donating to the Nebraska Athletic Department?
I was waiting for him to drop you see Isaiah Nayer's combine? He looked great, didn't he? Didn't Nayer look great? Tested off the charts, right?
People are going to lose their when Fedoni and Nayer get drafted. But John writes in, and this is for you, Peter. He says, Peter's only embarrassed about part of that story.
And that's fair. And that is a very fair take.
It's okay.
People need hobbies.
It you know what? Got me out of the house.
It took Pokemon to get you out of the house.
I was moving around. I was going on bike rides. I was staying active.
That's true.
Which is more than I could say in my
You've never
recent
been
years.
healthier in your life than you were when you were trying to go and catch a Charizard.
From freshman year of college onwards, the fitness definitely has declined.
Well, haven't we all? I mean, we all can
Speak
make
for
that
yourself.
claim. I'll speak for Peter and I. We both have probably taken a dive off the cliff in terms of athleticism since going to the UNL College of Journalism. It put some years on you. If you haven't been there recently.
Zach is back, has stayed away from Nebraska basketball. Pokemon died because the people that were playing it finally had to move out of their mom's basement and get a job.
Peter and I, that both actually did happen to us. So
it's true.
There we go. In that time period, we both
accurate take.
You're talking to two men who did move out of the mother's basements and got jobs. So there you go. That's a great analysis by Zach. Pokemon was fun. Hey, you laugh and you make
fun.
It was a great time.
I was a
great time.
Hey, I'm gonna admit I was with somebody who that was their thing. So
you played it together?
We did not play it together.
You went on Pokemon Go dates?
I just watched them.
Okay.
And observe.
And he was like into it.
Oh.
And then he, met a girl and Pokemon was to the side.
He turned
that probably happened.
He turned into a mud champ for a girlfriend, is what he did.
Hey, I was just relieved because I thought, man, he's never gonna meet a girl.
He's not. You don't think him going to the bars and being like, look at my chandelier. You like that?
No, to be fair, he met her. They're both from Omaha.
Yeah.
Met her before he became old enough to drink. Now, you're in Lincoln and you're upright with a pulse. You have a chance to, increase your age.
Yes.
Yeah. But technically he did. So I was good on him. Good.
They were. Hey, clap it up. They were catching Eevees together in the park.
The evolution.
I'm out of that one. Okay. When we come back, we do have to have a discussion about what happened in Lincoln. We also need to have a discussion what happened in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I think if you're a Creighton fan, you're worried about is 11-1 running out of gas and should be disappointed about what happened. The outcome, the 3-touchdown win by the Muskies, but the way that game started, it was a bad start for Blue and
everybody looked terrible.
Blue and Black Nebraska. All right, 7:28. There's Peter, Matt. I'm Gary. It's Gary and Matt on a Monday, 1620 The Zone. Hey, AF Academy is the place for you. Fastest growing youth basketball program in the Omaha area. They got tryouts going on for spring and summer, and the rosters look good. Last night, talking to some people from AAF, they're telling me about players and boys and girls that are going to be in their spring and summer teams. They're very, very excited. Attitude, effort, focus. That is what AEF stands for. 3 core values instilled in every athlete to become impact players, both on and off the court, and most importantly, in their communities. Great coaches from Andy to Isaac and more will take care of you. They are paid. They're on the court. They're working with you to make you a better basketball player and the all-around athlete. Now, tryouts are going on right now with March Madness right around the corner. 2nd grade through under 17 boys and girls. Now in the tryouts, and there are tryouts tonight, which you can see the schedule online at AEFacademy.com. Objective Insight, they're going to help you. They're going to put you on the right team. That's the way it is. So go to their website today and find out more about tryouts. And if you missed a tryout, contact AEF Academy. They'll work with you if you want to be part of AEF. But on that website, AEFacademy.com, there's no fee to try out. They just ask that you register, and you will see a lot of the summer camps are starting to crank up. The place to go, 99th and Portal Road in Papillion, brand new location, 3 hardwood courts. Online for more information, aefacademy.com. All right, coming up in about an hour, Evan Bland will join us. Talk some Nebraska football from the Combine over the weekend. Also, Nebraska baseball, which is 4-6. They're scheduled to play at Tal Anderson here in Omaha tomorrow at 5. But the world's going to come to an end tomorrow, according to meteorologists around town, with rain, wind, snow. So don't go anywhere. Shut her down for a couple of days.
This is one of those days where I'm very happy that I live on the first floor of my apartment, and I am not very high up or next to a window or anything like that. I'm nice and tucked in.
Get ready for a best of this week.
Yes.
We're everyone on 1620 is staying locked in. We're not.
We've done this before, but it's like, okay, you better go to the grocery store today.
Oh my God. Yeah, you keep telling me that. I actually do. The problem is, though, I do legitimately have to go to the grocery store today, not because it's going to be a winter weather advisory.
I'd wear a flak jacket.
Would you?
Yeah. I'd put on like protective armband stuff. It's going to be tight. Trying to get down the aisles.
Suited up.
Yes.
Go into Hy-Vee looking like Frozone.
That'd be pretty good.
I walk into Target. I'm dressed as Captain America. I could do this all day.
Tomorrow in the we're March Madness, so tomorrow Creighton is at Seton Hall. Nebraska plays a rather important game at Ohio State. One of the most important regular season Big Ten games Nebraska's played in a long time. Lose, probably over, and probably fans will say, "How much longer am I going to stick around?" Maybe it's the manner in which you lose, but Nebraska wins.
We're back in. You're back in it, but then you're saying
they're
again,
in, baby.
I mean, they probably are going to do the song and dance all the way up until Selection Sunday, meaning like they are going to probably, I honestly, I really kind of do think just with the vibe of this team and just how it's been and how this season has flown that they really might win tomorrow. And then they'll go and play Iowa at home at Pinnacle Bank Arena and what will be a rowdy crowd. And where it essentially is, hey, if you win this game, you practically, unless there's a lot of bid stealers, lock yourself in for an NCAA tournament bid, and then they'll lose that game. And then you'll go in to the tournament 8-12 in conference play, and it'll be like, hey, if they win 2 conference games because the bubble is so weak, they'll be, if they win, they'll be in and they'll win the first one and then it'll come down to that last conference game. It really,
welcome to Nebraska basketball,
that's
the
what
grind.
It's going to be.
Last time Creighton played a game that
they look good in.
Tough to play 40 minutes, but let's say the last time Creighton played a game where for 35 plus minutes, they look like the team you think they are. And what they are is post pop is a 7, 8, 9-ish type seed. They have to go back to Marquette. The home game against Marquette almost a month ago.
I would go all the way back to Providence because I was at that Marquette game, and that Marquette game was competitive, but they really needed like a last second, last kind of minute type surge in order to put that one away. Yeah, they played well against Marquette. I think buzzer to bell, they probably looked better against Providence. In Providence, they were.
What was that? The Providence game was the game before Marquette, right?
Yes, okay. Yes. But around that area, yeah. They looked well. Last time they looked like the team that maybe you thought they would look like toward the end of the season on this easier 5-game stretch is that first half against Connecticut. That first half against Connecticut, they looked absolutely incredible. They go on, went on a run. Connecticut kind of cut it a little bit at the very end, but they were absolutely steamrolling the Huskies until it really is that second half, where things kind of went a little bit sideways and they haven't able to fully recorrect it into what they were before that. Now, granted, they played St. John's really, really competitive. And if Ryan Kalkbrenner doesn't go down with an apparent foot injury and has to leave the game during an important stretch during crunch time, maybe they do end up winning that game against St. John's. But these last couple of contests in a stretch where you were thinking, wow, they're going to end up going 4-1, 5-0, able to build themselves momentum going into the Big East, because that has not been the case.
Great point, because Nebraska's the same way. Nebraska made it through the tough part of their schedule, even the 6-game siesta, and they're like, whew, we get to the end. And now it's been rocky. Creighton's kind of the same way. Creighton went through that stretch of Marquette, Connecticut, St. John's. Now they went 1-2, but they were within 10 points, the win against Marquette, and then the 4-point loss to UConn and the 6-point loss to the Garden. The thing about Saturday, though, this is so Xavier played out of their mind. And that credit to them because they understood the assignment. They knew that they had to win that game to put that on the resume. And I still can't believe people don't have them on the good side of the bubble because that's a good basketball team. But you are walking into that building and you know what you're getting into. And you know the team on the other side is going to have this enormous energy and juice early. And it's a place where you haven't necessarily played really well. And it's always raucous whenever Creighton goes into Cincinnati. And I was disappointed that Creighton couldn't match the energy early. They had no juice early. Here's another point that this sticks with me. I thought about this a lot over the weekend because I got home from the celebration, the regular season champion celebration at Baxter Arena. The hat,
yeah, man.
I got the hat, the shirt, a cord from the net.
Nice. You got a cord?
Oh yeah, it was.
That's awesome, man.
One of the Josh Strike came over and he said, "Hey, do you want?" No, they said, "Do you want to go cut down the net?" And I was like, "Nah, I'm good."
You should have went up. Why not, man? Go up the ladder.
Well, wait till Sunday.
Okay.
And he goes, "I'll be right back." And so he came back and I had a cord. So I got to the house and it was, I don't know, about 5 minutes into the first half in Cincinnati. And I was like, ooh, Xavier's ready to play. There was no juice early from Creighton. But then Kalkbrenner got going in the second half. I mean, they abused Ashworth. Xavier had the right game plan against Creighton, which is the same game plan everybody that beats them usually does. Because Creighton doesn't shoot very well from the three. Okay, Creighton is one of the most ultimate make-or-miss teams. They're not shooting well from three. So that changes that whole game. You know, you can do stuff against their rotations and get them out of rhythm. So Xavier is playing great, and they were out of their mind defensively. They were beating up Creighton.
Yeah.
And it was difficult for even Ashworth to get free, either to take a shot or to enter the ball into the paint. But Creighton comes back in the second half, and this is one that really, I had not seen this out of a Creighton team in a while. So they were getting back into the game. They were down 20 plus. Katie barred the door. The game was going to be a blowout.
Cut it to 7.
I mean, the students would have been, bathing themselves with Skyline chili. So they got it within 8.
8.
And then there is a turnover, and they went in the fetal position. It was a 17-2 Xavier run after that turnover when they were down 8. 17-2 run. I have not seen that of a Creighton team in a long time that just went into the ultimate fetal position after getting back into the game, and it was just one turnover that changed that game. I don't know. Xavier again played well, but that's a little bit disheartening.
I agree.
There's a lot of things. That's a disappointing game for Creighton because the juice was not there, and the juice hasn't been there since either the 5th of February in Rhode Island or the Saturday against Marquette.
They played a team that couldn't lose that game like a team that could lose that game, right? They played that game knowing, hey, we could lose and we're probably going to be fine. We're going to be in the tournament either way. We're going to be an 8 or we're going to be a 9. And you bring up them getting beat up, and you're referring to the defensive end, but even on the offensive end, I mean, Xavier was setting hard, tough, physical screens, and it was just like, just oftentimes too many guys ended up on the deck. But I think another concerning thing, and you kind of alluded to it, that I saw was that they did show a little bit of a blueprint of how to play against this really good defense, right? Number one is they made a lot of mid-range shots. Xavier was able to get themselves in pick and rolls, get themselves downhill, and we'll get to Kalkbrenner in a second, but when Kalkbrenner was in the paint, they did a really good job of pulling up right in front of the defender before that and hitting some floaters and hitting some baseline jump shots and making them pay for the mid-range game. But then also Fremantle did a phenomenal job of pulling Kalkbrenner out of the paint.
How is he still in school? That guy's been at Cincinnati for...
I mean, we say that a lot about a lot of athletes nowadays. I mean, there are a lot of people where it's just like, you're still... I mean, you can make an argument...
he was still in high school when he was playing...
That's crazy.
For the Muskies.
That's crazy. I mean, that's
I
just
saw
the
something
era of college basketball.
Hell, he might have been playing for Skip Prosser.
The average age of the Auburn starting lineup is nearly equal to that of the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Wasn't that a thing about 3 years ago? The Phoenix Suns, before they got Durant and Beal and all them, that they had a younger starting lineup than the Purdue basketball team, like in 2018.
Hey,
Like-
don't overlook this year in college basketball. I mean, find a way to get old and stay old. Like,
Yeah, it's working.
I mean, we're going to have a dude as a freshman in the tournament that's going to be on a team that'll be a number 1 seed. But it's like Ashworth and Kalkbrenner.
Yeah.
What did they say on the broadcast? Ashworth Saturday was his 160th game?
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Oh my God, yeah. Minnesota's got Parker Fox, who has been in college
he's
for
been
8
there
years.
for 6 years. Look at what Michigan's doing, right? They get Vlad Golden and they get Danny Wolf. Both those guys had played a ton of basketball, in lower, non-Power 5 places, but they had played a ton of basketball. I mean, you're getting to the point where experience matters, and that there are transfers up and down the board that are making massive impacts because they've played in high-level, high-leverage basketball before, and that's. I think that's kind of goes true for a lot of teams. Like you go and look at Alabama, like Mark Sears has been playing, some big games for a while. Chris Youngblood was at Kennesaw State. He had, plenty of experience going into that. Grant Nelson is a guy there who has been playing there for, I think it's his senior year now. It's his 4th year in Bama, regardless of the fact.
I don't know. He was in Fargo forever.
Yeah. So it's like experience matters. And it's like you said before, I mean, but that might be part of the reason we're getting to the point where, it's a little bit top heavy this year because, you have a lot of teams who are able to go and grab and buy this experience. And a lot of the teams that aren't doing well, look at UNC and now UNC and Kansas are on different sides of the egg, right? I mean, Kansas is going to be around a 7-8 seed. UNC is more than likely going to be out of the tournament. But those are two teams where they're not having as successful years. Why? Because they didn't do well in the transfer portal, right? I mean, a lot of college basketball now is getting down to how effective can you be in the portal. And if you want to relate it back to Nebraska basketball, that's part of the reason they are not having the consistency and success you were hoping they'd have, because the guys that they went in the portal just have not been consistent and for the most part have not been good.
It's kind of interesting. There's very little momentum. There's some good top end teams. I still think Iowa State, when Iowa State is healthy,
yeah,
really the only team that they've lost when they've been full strength was Auburn. Okay, out in Maui. But there's I look at Michigan yesterday. I'm like, man, is Michigan on fraud alert?
Sure.
Michigan State just goes through a run where they win 5 straight games and they're all quad 1 wins. But outside of Auburn, there's
Vanderbilt?
really, really good teams, but they don't no momentum. They'll play well for a 3-4 game stretch, and then they have a clunker. And then they'll play well for 2 games, then they have a clunker.
Yeah.
But they're still a really, really good basketball team. Is the number of teams that are good from the jump that haven't had that hiccup is very small. And it might start and end with Auburn. It's going to be
St. John's has been pretty good consistently all year. But granted, they're playing in the Big East. I think Houston hasn't really had too many clunkers in that regard. They're 24-4.
Monster. What does KU do in Houston?
Yeah.
Whoa.
But I mean, Kansas right now. I mean, they're sitting at Kansas is 19-10, and I understand. They had a great non-con. Okay, they beat Duke and they beat Michigan State. And they won some big games at the beginning of the year, but they're 19-10 as a 5 seed. I mean, I don't know. I think that team is a lot different now than what they were with what is boosting their resume right now. But that's just the entirety of the NCAA tournament. We look at the whole resume, and that's how we decide where certain teams are. But,
and with all of that said, Nebraska can get into the NCAA tournament. 13 days from today, will all 3 be in? 1 is definitely in.
I'm going to say,
one has another chance, but they got to win 3 more.
I'm going to say yes.
Oh.
I'm going to say yes. I say that all 3 are in. I absolutely trust
So that means
trust
Nebraska, in your world, I'm just setting the blueprint.
Yes.
In your world, Nebraska wins tomorrow night.
Yes.
Because I don't think they make the NCAA tournament without winning tomorrow night, because it's not like they're going to go on some magical carpet ride in Indianapolis.
I think they'll win, and it literally has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that this team is just bipolar and the fact that they play like they have nothing to lose and they look absolutely incredible and they win games that they shouldn't. And then on nights where they're supposed to be really good and they're supposed to win, they don't play like they have anything to lose.
Man,
And
that
they
would
look
suck
terrible.
to coach that team.
It would suck to coach that team. And so tomorrow, I think they're going to win because you know what? I think I still currently right now do believe in Fred Hoiberg. Right now, currently, still do believe in Fred Hoiberg. And I think that I just think with how this season has gone and with how this team has played and with how things have flown, like I think they'll win tomorrow. Now, here's the thing. Don't ask me about Iowa. Don't ask me if I think they'll beat Iowa because I got no idea. Even if they win tomorrow, I could not tell you if they are going to beat Iowa because how many times have they walked into their own building with some sort of hope or momentum or stakes and have absolutely fallen flat on their face? For those counting at home, it's been 3 times.
It actually might benefit Nebraska if Iowa upsets Michigan State.
Yeah, that they have like a false sense of hope or like going into that game. Yeah. Absolutely. Because they have been a little bit screwed over by the fact that the teams that they've been playing have had some of their worst games
and
before
again,
that game.
I think Nebraska right now is a very entitled program. They think they're somebody that they're not.
Oh yeah.
They're closer to Minnesota than they are to Maryland.
I think you can say that about multiple, I think you can say that just not about the basketball program. I think you can say that about I think you say that about football too. That
Nebraska football is entitled?
That Nebraska football thinks that they are closer to teams, and when in reality they are closer to the other back half of those teams. That's what I think.
All right, a little bit later, Evan Bland and Jacob Bigelow stopped by, and Gary and Matt, 1620 The Zone. All right, coming up after the top of the hour, we'll discuss the current state of Nebraska basketball after a loss like the one Nebraska had on Saturday. Everything is on the table. So watching ball yesterday, and Frankie Fiddler looks smooth. He was swimming in at the beginning of the year, and now his role is off the bench, but he looked good yesterday. That was a fun game. That was Kevin Harlan. He didn't call that game. He called the next game between Michigan and Illinois. Kevin Harlan calling games on a Sunday in March and then a back-to-back doubleheader on CBS. We're ready. We're ready for March. But the Michigan State-Wisconsin game was fun. I mean, it was a fun game to watch. But my question isn't necessarily about, who's better, Michigan State or Wisconsin, is if your dad is one of the best dunkers of all time in the NBA, shouldn't son be a good dunker? Shouldn't son be the best dunker on the Michigan State team? If Jason Richardson is one of the best dunkers in the NBA,
Yeah, Trey.
and
Should be better.
then Jace should be
Jace,
better. But Carr is their best
I
dunker.
was about to say, Carr is so if you watch Michigan State basketball, you know that there will be a moment about once or twice a game where Carr just goes to the rim
Like
and does an acrobatic layup or an acrobatic dunk. Like I was watching the Michigan game and he popped multiple times. And then you look at the box score and you're like, oh, he only had 6 points. But it's like there is a little bit of a value, and this is a bit of a basketball thing. When you have a guy like that who makes buckets that emphatically, it is a bit of a momentum swinger in terms of the fact that it either stops the other crowd from getting into the game because, hey, he just yammed on one of your guys and that silenced the crowd. Or, and this did, happen earlier in the year, where he makes a big dunk and they're at East Lansing and they rise to their feet and everybody gets into it and exciting. It's like, yeah, he scores 4 points, but his 4 points probably mean more than most people's 4 points because of the manner in which he does it.
But shouldn't your DNA, don't you pass that down? If Pops is a good dunker, you're a good dunker?
Isn't that the same thing with Shiloh Sanders? Your dad is probably the greatest cover corner of all time, and you can't do anything in terms of a safety other than hit people really, really hard and at times illegally. I mean, wouldn't you think that Shedeur Sanders should be much faster and much more mobile than what he is? He's not a slow player, but I mean, compared to what his father was, yeah, I mean, it doesn't always get passed on. You would think that Tim Hardaway Jr. would be a better dunker, but Tim Hardaway Jr. is a 3-point shooter.
And his crossover isn't as good as Dad, who had one of the greatest crossovers of all time in the history of basketball.
AI versus Hardaway is the greatest who has the better crossover argument? I would take Allen.
Tough to go away from AI.
I would take Allen.
When we come back, Nebraska basketball, can't quit them.
Can't quit them.
But how much longer are you going to stick around? And there's a discussion. Everything's on the table after a game like Saturday in Lincoln, and things that were said after the game by either your leader in Bryce Williams. Help a brother out. HBO. Help Bryce Williams out.
That's a good one.
Or the head coach, who I believe he was very robotic. He said the same thing that he has said numerous times this year. We'll get into that. Plus Omaha men's basketball. The banner in the building. I got the what they should put on the banner. And we'll talk about some combine stuff as well. Did Nebraska's strength and conditioning have a good weekend?
Yeah.
Or did personal trainers to get you ready for the combine have a good weekend? It's all to come in the second half of a Monday edition of Gary Madden, 1620 The Zone. All right, so one of the things from the combine over the weekend, first of all, the offensive linemen. I mean, they're just people that are in the industry of preparing football players for the combine and the workouts, the individual workouts and the running and all that stuff are freaks.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch of freaks running around. I'm looking at the offensive linemen yesterday, and there's larger men like are running as fast as Ty Robinson ran, but they weigh 332 pounds.
It's crazy.
It's kind of scary.
It's crazy.
But you know how many times does a 332-pound man in the NFL run straight down the field 40 yards unless he has the ball in his hands?
Hey, have you seen Trent Williams play? You see him pulling? You see him running down the field? You see him blocking for Debo? Oh, wait.
I like the 10-yard shuttle.
Yeah.
But at the combine,
I'm a broad jump guy.
Well, you're a Thomas Fidone guy then.
I am a Thomas Fidone guy.
The combine that wrapped up over the weekend in Indianapolis, and Nebraska had a good representation. Tommy Hill didn't do anything. I wonder what he'll do at the Pro Day in Lincoln later this month. But Jalen Milroe, like the QB, who's the QB3 of this draft, will be fascinating.
Yeah.
Will Howard had a bad day.
Terrible.
Jackson Dart looked okay, but Ward, Sanders, how much of the gap is there? But there's a lot of discussion who's going to be the third quarterback off the board. Jalen Milroe has entered the conversation. But the takeaway from Jalen Milroe's time at the combine is that from the Senior Bowl to Indy, his hand size increased.
Yeah. So,
I don't think you can increase the size of your hand.
It went up a full inch
Yeah.
since the Senior Bowl. And then every single lineman measurement, offensive lineman measurement from the Senior Bowl to the NFL Combine was off by anywhere from a quarter to a full inch.
What kind of ruler were they using down in Alabama?
Is there a discrepancy in, because I've had this happen before. This is not a joke.
Your hand size got bigger?
Actually, we did a combine before, and I actually have the most average hand size you possibly can have.
I don't know if I say congratulations or not, but go ahead.
There are some people, I had a friend who he was measuring something with a tape measure, and he's not the brightest guy, but he started at 1. Like, he didn't start at 0. Like, he put the thing down at 1 and then went all the way down. And I go, what are you doing? He goes, it's 1 to 32. I go, no, it's 0 to 32. You start at 0. So I wonder if that buddy was the official measurer of all the lengths and sizes over at the Senior Bowl. Because the fact that, I mean, it's not this. To my knowledge, I don't think this is a common occurrence in where the Senior Bowl measurements are this consistently far off. And so clearly whoever job that was at the Senior Bowl is going to lose it next year.
Did he break his hand? Because if you break your hand,
does it come back bigger?
Well, it can affect the shape and size of your hand.
Maybe he did a stretching technique where he was able to get that pinky a little bit farther out. You can't.
So you can increase the firmness and grip of your hand.
Yeah.
You cannot increase the size, because I tried it as a young person. When I wanted to be a basketball player, I put
salt in your shoes.
I put basketball cards in my sneakers so I was taller, and then I tried to stretch my fingers, and I was told that that was not happening. The mom in the household, who is in the medical field, she was like, you are related to your dad. So I was like, whoa, how does your hand get that big? But if somebody doesn't know how to measure,
I
that
think
makes
that's what
perfect sense.
I mean, they put someone who did not know how to properly use a tape measure, measuring for the Senior Bowl. But you know what? They figured out at the combine. There had to be some guys though who had to be like a little bit disappointed. Like after the Senior Bowl, they're walking up there, they kind of know their measurements and they know the marks that they have to hit. They're like, yes, I did it. Like, I got my 38-inch arms. I got it. I got the standard. And then they go to the combine. They're like, buddy, you're 37. And by the way, you're now a day 3 pick because of that. Have fun.
Hey, and we'll see you next year of more people that go, I'm not going to that.
I'll tell you something
I'm
right now.
going to control my own measurements.
This running back class.
That's why they let you on your driver's license, your height and weight. Can you imagine if they measured your height and your weight at the DMV?
It'd take longer than it already does.
I great point. I am actually inaccurate the other way on my ID. I am 5'11", and I'm 5'10" on my ID. Okay, and I am 180, and I'm actually 179 right now. So there you go. I'm one of the rare people that I've undersold myself on my ID. Okay. I'm not Mason Graham, where I'm weighing 296 pounds, and Michigan has me listed at 320.
I was for the longest time 190 on the driver's license.
Okay.
Just look like a good number.
Yeah.
I think that's the first number I put down. Maybe it's. You know what? I'm gonna go look.
You ever see a crooked number on an ID? Like, you ever see anyone who like had 187 on there?
I've seen 189
180. That is so like, why? Like, just round up whole numbers.
because their favorite football player weighed 189.
Oh,
And so they used their measurements on their driver's
it
license.
wasn't even.
They weren't very far off,
Yeah.
but they're like, oh, my favorite player is 6'1", 189.
What if my favorite player was Warren Sapp? Would I have to put 6'6", 320 pounds on my?
Well, I don't know. Does the person behind the counter, they just want to get through their job working at the DMV? Do they need not even check that?
Isn't that?
Probably not.
Do you think that might be a little bit awkward if someone clearly put a weight that was way too low on their ID, and someone
Now-
behind the desk has to go, "Hey, bud, you're
Hey,
I-
save that for your fake ID.
Yeah.
This is the real
this is the real deal."
government issued ID.
Like, I know you want to be 140, but
just like,
you're actually at 170.
Sorry. Now I just checked mine. The weight that's on there is what I was at the time when I got my first driver's license. Laughably far from what I actually weigh currently.
The only thing different is that I'm looking at my ID right now. My hairline was much better back when I took this picture than it is now. I've lost. I look at this thing and I go, "Where did that boy go? Where did he go?" My ID picture's now 5 years old.
Mine hasn't been updated. I renewed my license and they gave me the same picture.
I have to renew my license
I
in
don't
May.
know. I don't know if I send in a selfie.
That'd
Okay.
be fun.
Like, hey, update your picture. Oh yeah, I'll do an action shot.
Is there? I'm going. So I have to get a new ID for like May and everything like that, and I'm getting it in Nebraska. So if there's any tips on what DMV to go to and what time to go there and what the strategy should be, I'm all ears for that.
Sarpy County
Running
Or-
backs though in the
or,
combine
uh,
were incredible.
or out on L, or not L.
Yeah, what the
one that is out by the Super Saver,
Yeah.
the pizza machine.
that one's relatively.
Oh, that's a good place. Those people are
relatively
good there.
Yeah.
Okay, so Saturday in Lincoln, Nebraska loses to Minnesota. Shot quality had them as a projected 20-point
That's
favorite.
crazy.
They
That's
were
crazy.
They were on Vegas. They were 10.5-point favorite.
I
I
can look
believe
back.
so.
But the game is not played in a 7-minute window. In basketball, the beauty of basketball is they play 40 minutes. So Nebraska loses to Minnesota.
They were a 7. The final line was 7-point favorite.
Okay. Omaha was 10.5. My bad. They
Yeah.
I think that opened at 8.5, got down to 7.
It did open
Somebody-
at 8.5.
Somebody knew something. But when you lose a game like that and you're in year number 6 and there are questions about sustaining a program once you get it to the point of last year where you made many memories and got to the NCAA tournament and this year got off to a great start and now have lost 10 of 15. Everything is on the table and it should be.
Yeah.
Nobody should avoid it. This should be a discussion because this can either be a discussion to move the program forward or to start the program anew, and you shouldn't run away from it. If you're the person that goes to every game and you're excited, you should have expectations about sustaining a program. This year's been a grind. I think Fred hates this team. I think the players hate each other, okay? But he's trying to drag them to get to the NCAA tournament, and then you at least have that on your ledger. But the thing about college basketball, we're just talking about getting old, staying old, is you see a lot of one-year turnarounds quickly.
Yeah.
You hire a coach, he brings some players with him, he has connections. Now, if I'm advising Fred on next year, is you got to hire yourself a GM, and I think you got to add an elite recruiter to your staff. You got to find somebody that is a dude when it comes to recruiting. Like, not, hey, it's great to have X's and O's guys,
Yeah.
but you got to have a dude on your staff that is a get dirty, go get yourself some players. Okay? He doesn't need to be Abdul Massey, but you got to find that person. So a GM and elite recruiter. But I think the question becomes, as you're saying, all right, Fred, I know you got some challenges, but still, I think it's a good job. You're paid as a top 20 coach.
Yeah.
The NIL, which is talked about ad nauseum about Nebraska basketball, sometimes it is the coach's doing. So it isn't always nobody is supporting because the coach can impact the NIL, not only of who we're going to pay and don't overpay this guy, but also people that are donating to NIL. If they like you and they believe in you,
They'll give you more.
they're going to give you more. So the coach has a lot of, I'd say,
A lot of pull. It's got
a lot of pull with the NIL.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about Nebraska basketball. I think this is the question to ask. And we don't know where Troy Dannon is, in terms of men's basketball,
Yeah.
because they got some financial issues, and Fred's got a big buyout, is what do we think of Nebraska basketball a year in? Is a 1-year turnaround for Nebraska, because this hasn't been fun.
No.
And they can still make the NCAA tournament, but we know that might be a little bit hollow. Is a 1-year turnaround for Nebraska, is it better from the inside? Is it more attainable from the inside or somebody from the outside? Because you're going to have a lot of spots open. You had 2 scholarships. You already have you're probably going to have 8 to 9 scholarships that are going to be open. So is the turnaround to get it back to where you think it should be, where you don't go through another year like this where it's a friggin' grind and you're still in the conversation to be in the NCAA tournament? You're supposed to be having fun this time of the year.
Yes.
Okay, you're supposed to have momentum. You're like, okay, I can't wait to get there. Not a grind. Oh, my God, just get us to the finish line. You know what? We'll go to the NCAA tournament. If we win a game, that's great. They'll build a statue, but get these guys the hell out of here. Make them go to spring break. Is it easier to do inside or outside next year at Nebraska?
I think what you have to ask yourself the question is what is the problem of this team? The problem of this team is there's a lot of them, but one of the main problems is the roster construction. There's not enough spacing. You don't have a good enough point guard. You have players on the team that you recruited because they were really good athletically with the hope that you could help develop them, and you weren't able to develop them, right? So you have to ask, okay, who got us into this mess? Well, it's Fred Hoiberg and his staff by picking out the wrong players and bringing them into the wrong system and putting the wrong puzzle pieces together. That's what you got you in this mess. So now you have to ask yourself, do you trust the person who got you into the mess to get you out of the mess? And has Fred Hoiberg done enough to prove to you that he can get you out of the mess that he created? Now, I would go as far to say as there needs to be an audit of this program and
Doge?
And has to. And
hey, can you imagine if Doge came to some athletic departments
and wiped out people who didn't need
in college athletics?
Can you imagine? They find out the University of North Carolina has hired Elon Musk in order to review the current standing of what they're doing in order to wipe out some jobs. Anyway, regardless of that, you need to ask yourself, do we trust the guy who got us into this mess to get us out of this mess? And in terms of doing a full audit, you have to recognize that, hey, Fred Hoiberg's greatest success in terms of getting prospects or getting transfer portal prospects have been getting non-Power 5 contributors. They really haven't done the best job in getting Power 5 guys who needed another tool added and helping them develop that tool. I mean, they've done much better with getting non-Power 5 guys and giving them the reins than making players like Berke Buchton, Joe Braxton, Mia, Connor Esigian better. Now, you could argue that Jawan Gary is a guy that, yeah, he came from Alabama and he improved, but that's taken like 3 years to do that. It's like you have to start asking yourself the question, hey, Fred, like, do you think if you're bringing in these guys that you're going to really have that extended amount of period of time to develop them? And the answer is no, which is exactly the reason why he brought in Mask and why he brought in Williams last year, was because he needed instant production right away. I do think that your question, is it internally or is it externally? I don't think there's any reason. Like, Fred has proven enough that he should have some say in who they go and get. He's the coach, obviously. If he likes a guy and he wants it to be a priority, then that should be a priority. At the same time, I think they need to hire a GM. I really do. I think they need to have other eyes, another set of eyes, just on what is going on in college basketball. I think there needs to be a guy in the department or on that team that their only job is to watch other teams play basketball. You're not worried about Nebraska. You don't tell us X's and O's. You don't give us anything. You go out and you watch everybody else in non-Power 5 and you tell us who you like and who you don't like. Like, there needs to be, I feel like, an external program essentially that's helping get talent.
The elite recruiter I would hire first and then bring in a GM to take stuff off of Fred's plate. But they need a big time recruiter. They need somebody that is in the weeds, that you don't necessarily need them on the floor.
Yeah.
They observe from afar when you're running through your scout.
Mm-hmm. No.
And their whole thing is they wake up and their job is to go get you dudes.
And
they had that guy.
Yeah.
And Abdel Massi, he just took it too far.
I think another thing is she was like, you have your scouting, you have your high school scouting, you have your recruiting, and then you also have, you're keeping an eye on college basketball, current players that are playing. I think you need to completely split it up and say, hey, we have a conglomerate of guys where they are only doing high school, right? Which for this program probably doesn't need to be that many. And we have a whole other conglomerate of people.
Come here as a high school kid and we'll redshirt you.
Yeah. I mean, it's just they don't have interest in developing high school guys. They really don't have an interest in doing that. And so you need to dedicate an external full part of the program in order to looking at the transfer portal, because we talk about sustainability. What is the Fred Hoiberg model right now? It's going out into the transfer portal and basically building a team in your mind every offseason and seeing how those guys that you bring in can connect to the core and the pieces that you currently have. That is their sustainability model, which is part of the reason why they like these 2-3-year transfers, because they get to build a core and then bring other portal guys to complement
Did they ever say why Janowski redshirted?
No.
Which is still, in this day and age of college athletics, is wild. Unless somebody just physically, they wouldn't be able to compete. Now I don't know, he can shoot it. You see him on the side. I wonder why they made the decision to redshirt him.
It doesn't make sense. If he is doing well in practice, shooting the ball, that is a guy that you need on the floor, because they need spacing. They don't have spacing. That's been the problem with this offense. That's why it's so stop and go.
They also need college basketball, where I think the idea of redshirting is going away. But they've never had in college basketball, like in college football. Why can you play 4 games and still be able to redshirt? Why don't they give you that opportunity in college basketball?
I agree.
Other than if you're a mid-major coach, you're definitely afraid of that, because what happens if a guy plays 6 games and
plays really well,
and then says, nah, you know what, I'm going to preserve my year, I'm going to sit out.
Well, that's what happened. And that's exactly what happened in college football at UNLV. Matthew Slacka, the quarterback for the Rebels, where UNLV was one heck of a team last year, but they had one hell of a start, beat Kansas, they go 4-0, and then all of a sudden he goes, nah, I'm not getting my NIL money, I'm not getting the money I deserve, I'm going to go into the portal. Like, that could happen as well. But from a Nebraska basketball perspective, I just think that they need to commit to what they are doing, and they need to have an external hiring process that can make this transfer portal acquisition as efficient as possible. But there also has to be the discussion of, is this the best way to make Nebraska basketball what it is? Is this the best way to have sustained success for Nebraska basketball? And if that question is no, if the powers that be decide, you know what, this isn't the way that we think this program should go, and you're looking at Vanderbilt, and you're looking at Louisville, and you're looking at Michigan, you're looking at 3 teams who have 3 brand new coaches who are making the tournament in 1-year turnarounds. If you look at them and say, you know what, we're better off than doing that than what we're doing now, that becomes the convo.
On a side note, John says the DMV on Millard Avenue by Pizza Machine doesn't do driver's license anymore. That is very sad. Because my first time, they said go to the one on Cass.
No.
Everybody in Omaha goes there.
Yeah, that's.
And then we were looking for like places where are not well known. That's disappointing. So do not go to the DMV on Millard Avenue.
Isn't there a new? There's like a new DMV kind of out by Village Point, isn't there?
Don't know. I'm an online guy. Why would I want to have interaction with those people?
I mean, I don't blame you. Do you make appointments now in Nebraska, or is it still first come, first serve?
I think I'll make an appointment. I'd go online. You know, another place that is pretty good is over off of L. It's between 60th and 52nd, something like that.
Okay, yeah. The new one is about 170th and Burt. I did go to that one a few years ago.
That seems to be a bougie place out there.
Little bougie.
When I look up DMV,
they have valet parking if you come to renew your driver's license there.
The one that I'm sent to is the one on 56th Street. In North Omaha. No go.
I think that's a good spot.
I don't think I've been to that one.
Good to know. Nebraska.
Peter, you as a District 66 guy, know you've not been to that one. All right, Evan Bland a little bit later. Jacob Bigelow as well on 1620 The Zone. All right, Evan Bland's going to join us here in a little bit. We'll go on WebMD to see the Mason McConaughey availability. So Evan will join us here in a little bit. This discussion about Nebraska basketball, which still could make the NCAA tournament. They win tomorrow night, put on your dancing shoes, and then go, oh, God. But it's been a grind this year. And when you lose like Saturday, late in the year with a lot on the line, the place is packed, the discussions are wide open, and they're absolutely fair to have that we're having this morning. But there's another part of when you look at Fred is, and I'm getting this today a lot on Twitter and in the email box, is, you know what? If they fire Fred, I'm okay. If they keep Fred, I'm okay. That's a weird spot to be in. Like, there's no definitive, like we got to the point with Scott where we were like, that seems like it's a gots-to-go situation. But I want to read this before you respond. This is from Dave. And this is about Fred. He goes, I've been really conflicted about Fred. Seeing how challenged this team is offensively this year, I've often thought that this might be one of Fred's best coaching jobs, which maybe after the year we have a end of the year press conference and things just get let out about how you're dragging guys across the finish line and things you've had to deal with. I don't think there's any secret this team does not play like playing with each other, but he has had them in contention for a spot in the NCAA tournament. Conflicted, Dave, is a great word about Nebraska basketball. That shows that he has coached the crap out of this team to get them where they're at. But we are where we are also because of Fred. He doesn't seem to develop high school talent very well and has had to hit the portal every year. And when that happens, you risk having chemistry issues with a team, which I see this team having. Well, he has turned this team around for the first 3 years. The fact of the matter is that in year 6, he still has a record of 80-105, which looks terrible. I don't think he'll be fired this year, but if we don't make the Big Ten tournament, the heat could be scorching hot. Now, that's a whole different conversation if the bottom falls out and your season ends next Sunday. I mean, there's only a one-sided conversation.
That's one of the more nuanced takes on this whole situation that I've heard. It's very reasonable.
I don't know what the answer is for this team, and I have no idea how the AD treats the program and how he feels about it, but something needs to change, and quickly. That's from Dave into the Equitable Bank inbox.
Good thoughts.
So it's just almost inexcusable to have a stretch like this at the end of the year where you're right on the verge of making the NCAA tournament and you're past the difficult part of your schedule and you get to play 3 teams who are at damn near the bottom of the Big Ten at the end of it to basically put yourself in that situation. It is damn near inexcusable to have this easy stretch to then lose these games, but then not only just lose these games, hearken back to similar messages of what the problem has been previously in the season. And what I mean by that is early January, we were talking about urgency. We were talking about effort. We were talking about inconsistency. And now it has been 2 months and you should have the urgency is there. It's set up for you. The stakes are there. Every single game you play is important. You've put yourself in the situation where you cannot drop these games. And if you drop these games, you don't make the tournament. And the fact that we are having the same problems 2 months later, when it's go time, it's crunch time, it's no longer, hey, you still have a lot. No, you don't have a lot left. You're it. We're here.
Well, they use, what was the phrase? We're running out of bullets?
I mean,
whoa.
like when you're telling me, Matt, here are the problems. Our problem is that we've lost our identity. Our problem is that we've lost our urgency. Our problem is that we're not playing good defense. And then 2 months later, you look at me and you say the same exact things, then what the hell have you been doing? And why the hell is that message not getting through to your players? And why the hell are we in the same spot? Because that's my biggest problem. It has nothing to do, yes, they're losing the games, but if they were missing shots and they were having tough times and whatever, like if it was just a basketball thing or if it was an entirely different problem, you would look at it and you'd say, you know what? I guess that happens. That happens for some teams. Some teams have seasons where it just can't go your way. Injuries happen. Shots don't fall. Weird instances. No, we are talking about the same exact stuff we were talking about 2 months ago. What's been happening? What have you been doing? Why have you been unable? Not only have you been unable to make a good roster, a proper construction, but you've clearly been unable to get through to them as well. It's a terrible look. And it's one of those things where it's even when if they get into the tournament, you're looking back on the season, you're like, man, that was a rough one.
No, this is what's going to happen. And this is straight from the heartbeat of a Nebraska basketball fan.
Yeah.
This would be the year they win a game. They find a way to grind their way into the tournament, and they win a game in the tournament. Of all years, not last year, where that was a very likable team and a good team.
Yes.
It would be the team that people are ready to be done with. But God, I want to be in the NCAA tournament. That would be the most on-brand outcome of this season for Nebraska
and the
basketball.
Ugliest first-round game of the whole tournament.
There would be people who would be like, man, they won the game, they did it, and they got it off the books, but they were unlikable. I mean, this is an unlikable team to root for. It is.
It's just not a fun brand of basketball to
at
watch.
all.
It's just not.
Well, sometimes you have to be honest and say they don't have enough good players.
No, they do not.
I mean, it had nothing to do with between the earlobes. Sometimes they just don't have enough good players. And they have a collection of guys who are if I'm opening up baseball cards, they're commons. I'm not getting many, top-notch, hey, what can I get on the open market for this guy?
No.
That's why they got to help a brother out. I mean, HBO, Bryce Williams. Just help the guy out.
You're getting a lot of You're not getting a lot of refractors or a lot of prisms or a lot of jersey cards or a lot of 1 out of 250s. You're getting a lot of, he played for the Atlanta Hawks for 3 years and was this really niche role player. Okay, cool. Out of here. I mean, they've recruited a team and they got guys who they looked at them and said, all right, Braxton Mia is a big body and he'll clog up the paint. Hey, if we can develop his rebounding and make him, better at sealing out on the offensive end, if we can develop that, man, he could be an effective player. Oh, here's Bear K. Buchton, Joe. He's a really good athletic 6'10" guy. You know what? If we can develop a jump shot for him and get him smarter on the offensive end, man, he can be an effective two-way player.
Problem is,
it's 1 to 15.
He could be. He does some things well defensively.
Yes.
I mean, he's gonna have to have a big offseason if he's part of the mix next year. Which I mean, you're getting paid pretty well. I don't know why you'd want to leave here. It'll be on him. I'm not ready to throw him to the side because I think defensively he's okay, but he's got to have a big offseason. But he'll be somebody along with. Now you got to make sure the Rink Master is definitely coming back. That you're going to have to build around, you're going to have to add to the Turkish nightmare is going to have to be part of the mix.
How
off season?
How would we feel about this team next season if Rink Mast wasn't coming back next year? It'd be a very, very different outlook.
The outcome would be it'd be new people in charge because you can't have that guy sitting on the end of your bench who has been nice guy last year.
Yeah,
would have made a huge difference this year as an extra shooter on the floor.
Point.
And he sticks around all year, and then when he's healthy, he bails on you. I don't even have to have that conversation. That conversation writes itself. All right, Evan Bland of the World Herald is coming up next. All right, let's welcome in Evan Bland. Busy weekend, hoping for good weather as Nebraska baseball opens up this weekend. The Big Ten Baseball Conference schedule begins this weekend with Washington, like it should in the first weekend of March. Good morning.
Morning, guys.
All right, let's play some percentages here. The next time Nebraska baseball plays will be what day this week?
Friday, maybe.
Okay.
I haven't looked at the weekend forecast, but man, the Tuesday one's a little dicey. I wonder if maybe they try to move that thing up in Omaha, possibly.
Which is being discussed. Yes.
Yeah, I guess that'd be kind of my second choice if we're playing the odds, and then I don't know. I don't know if the Wednesday one's going to happen. The Cale Frost South Dakota State reunion game, that one's in danger, I think.
Hey, so 3 weeks in, last 2 weekends, 1 and 2. The disappointment on Saturday when the opportunity was there, but LSU, which I think we're going to be talking about here in Omaha in June, goes with a crooked number. Yesterday, K-State jumped Nebraska right away. Back-to-back weekends, 1 and 2. They come home, and now they get into a rhythm of playing at home in the conference, 4 and 6. Same questions that maybe we talked about last Monday. Are they still there, or is there another question or two through the first 10 that you have?
Well, I mean, the offense has gotten off to a slow start, probably slower than people would have thought, and they're still working through their lineup possibilities. Like who, for example, would have thought through 3 weeks that Devin Nunez would be one of their best hitters, a freshman who forces his way into the everyday lineup that's full of veterans and seniors and returning guys. So part of that's a credit to what Nunez has done. I think he's been really impressive, but part of that also has come because there's been opportunity with some guys ahead of them that haven't performed up to snuff. I mean, we talked about Gabe Swanson's opening weekend, and as good as that was, the last two have been rough. Cale Frost had a big Friday, but prior to that, hadn't had a hit through 2 weekends. So, like, there's a lot of untapped potential so far through 3 weeks. I mean, that's where I would start with things. The bullpen hasn't been very good either. We certainly saw that this weekend, and it just kind of feels like you don't know what you're going to get from your third starter, whether that's Will Walsh or Jackson Brockett, and really maybe beyond Jalen Worthley and Luke Broderick, you don't really know what's going to happen out of the bullpen either. So, I mean, they're 4 and 6. The way that I look at it is like this, it's not all that unusual relative to recent Nebraska baseball history, where you go on the road in February, you tend to play talented warm weather schools, and then you come home, and like this is the time when you start fattening up the record and you start getting on a roll, and the weather starts heating up. And so, like, you have a losing record through 3 weekends. You certainly left some opportunities on the field, but to me, this is the week where you really start looking at it and say, okay, assuming they were to play Omaha or South Dakota State, and Washington hasn't been very good, like this would be the week where you really need to start showing that you were a preseason top 25 team and that you do have a lineup full of guys who have been to a regional and who have won a conference title and all that. So, like, to me, this is kind of when you need to start making that move. This is when Nebraska regional teams of the past have started to show what they could do. And, we'll see if it happens. We'll see if they get the opportunity here, even in the middle of the week. But a lot of questions still to be answered. I think they're working through some things.
They've started the year 4 and 6, but my question to you, Evan, is there a little bit of encouragement in the fact that there hasn't been necessarily one obvious glaring problem, and it's more so been about the fact that this team really can't put it all together consistently? One game you have great pitching performances, the offense can't get going, and vice versa. Is there a little bit of optimism in the fact that, hey, there still are guys who are performing at a high level, and this team just needs to kind of put it together?
Yeah, I think you can make that case. I mean, defensively, they've been really good. They have one error so far that hasn't come from the pitcher, and even that was on kind of a difficult ball up the middle that they charged, Dylan Carey with it short. So the defense has been really solid. The pitching assuming Mason McConaughey is good to roll and Ty Horn's doing his thing, you feel pretty good about Friday, Saturday. Sunday's been kind of a coin flip. I mean, like I mentioned, Will Walsh and Jackson Brockett the first weekend looked good, but then each guy's gotten a chance to strengthen his Sunday case and has fallen flat the last 2 weekends. So what do you do with that next weekend? How do you handle the midweek here coming up? Should it play out that way? It's like, those are questions that seemed like Nebraska had answers to 3 weeks ago, that they feel maybe a little less confident in what they're doing there right now. And then, like I mentioned with the offense, like, they have guys with track records who just, it hasn't come together yet. I mean, we know what Gabe Swanson can do, and we've seen what Kale Frost can do. And, like, you can just go up and down the lineup with some of these guys who've gotten off to slow starts, who have done it before. And the confounding thing with the offense has been, in some of these games, like, they come out hot and then they just disappear for like 4 or 5 innings. And so to hear Will Bolt talk about it, I think they're frustrated with the lack of adjusting that's going on in game, or even if you do come out and start off well and the pitcher adjusts, like, that just kind of feels like it's the end of it for the Nebraska offense. So again, like, history says that when the weather warms up, the bats tend to get better. Rob Childress is still in charge of the pitching. This is an ongoing, fluid, evolving nature that the staff's going through right now. So I think they're going to find those roles. Just hasn't happened yet. And again, they've played pretty darn good teams. LSU's now the number 1 team in the country. I mean, Louisiana, I think, is going to be pretty decent. Obviously Vanderbilt and UC Irvine and so on and so forth. Like, I think these teams, when you look back, you're going to see that they've had pretty good seasons. So now to me is that time when, if you're Nebraska, you need to start figuring out your roles individually. I mean, that's always the goal anyway, going into conference play. I think they're just not comfortable with what that lineup's going to look like, what the pitching configuration is going to be. So they're going to need to figure that out here this week and get rolling if they want to stay on track to make the NCAA tournament.
Hey, at the beginning of the year, we thought, okay, Gabe Swanson's going to be early Gabe instead of late Gabe. And last year when it warmed up, he started to hit the ball. And of course, we saw once we got to the month of May. But could you ever imagine, Evan, that he would struggle as much as he has? I mean, he's hitting 162. They've kind of moved him down in the order. But, man, at the plate, he doesn't look anything close to the guy we saw in May.
No, and I mean, no, he doesn't. And he had that great opening weekend with 9 RBIs and has just kind of fallen off since then. And I mean, unfortunately, can you imagine it? Yeah, because we saw it last year. 2 years ago, he was kind of that third big bat behind Bryce Matthews and Max Anderson. He had like the quietest 18 home runs that probably any Nebraska hitter's ever had. And then he brought that into the next year. I had actually met with him for a feature story at the start of last year that never saw the light of day because he lost his job and it never went anywhere. So like, and he would tell you a lot of that struggle was because, he got into his own head and kind of knew what was at stake with maybe his draft stock and things like that. He was put on scholarship, and I think all that kind of went to his head a little bit. He figured it out late. And so it's hard to say whether that's sort of a mental thing that's back with him, if that's just, hitting in February for a warm weather school and you haven't gotten outside. But so like, again, now for him, and I think a lot of these guys individually, it's the same story as the team at large. Like the arms that you're going to be facing in the next couple weeks are not the arms that you just faced, generally speaking, in the last couple. So I think this is where a lot of these guys can find their swing, find their confidence. They know they've done it before. They've displayed their skill level in the past, and it just needs to come out. I think this team just needs something good to happen to it, and maybe they can get rolling.
The team total batting average right now is 240. The team total ERA is 507. If you had to pick a number that is going to improve quicker, which number would you pick?
I think I'd still take the ERA. I still think that's like there's more there for Nebraska. Again, I think you feel good about Friday and Saturday. I don't see those roles changing, barring injury or something unforeseen. But there's just something about, especially if you're a cold weather team in college baseball early in the year, like you've seen the off-season workouts, you've done fall ball, you've seen what guys do in the summer, but there's just something about getting outside with your college jersey on against other competition that's really illuminating. And like, guys emerge that you don't expect to emerge, guys struggle that you don't expect to struggle, and you just kind of figure it out as you go. And so Nebraska does that many years. I think that's something they're doing now. I mean, there could be some freshman arms that step up, the Price Benders of the world, or the Gavin Blackowitzes, guys who have impressed, I think, in the first couple of weeks. Like, at some point, if you're a coaching staff, you just put out the guys who are performing, and whether they're the new guys or not. Like, we've seen that with Nunez on the hitting side. I think maybe you'll see that a little bit more on the pitching side too. So like, I think maybe some people kind of roll their eyes like, oh, how could you not know what you have? I think in college baseball, it can be different when you do get out there. And so I think that's something that they're working through. But I think, again, with Rob Childress and with just the depth of arms they have, it just seems too unlikely to me that this is going to be a staff that's going to struggle mightily all season.
McConaughey precautionary on Friday night when they pulled him?
Yeah, that was what came out of Frisco. Sounded like he had like a tingling in his arm a little bit, and so they decided to get him out of there. It was not one of those deals where a guy kind of knows that he's hurt or that it's anything serious, and he came off. And Will Walsh did a good job finishing out that win over Sam Houston. But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll hear from Will Bolt either Tuesday or maybe a little later this week. But obviously, that's an arm you have to have. You don't want to miss him for any length of time. And so if it's a deal that he's just an older player who knows his body and knows, hey, maybe something didn't feel quite right and we want to get out of there, more power to him. Nebraska found a way to win the game. And if they want to get where they want to be, I mean, you need Mason McConaughey at the front of your rotation to do things. So sounds like it was precautionary. I guess now that they're back and they can do tests if they need and all the rest, we'll find out for sure. But that's what it looks like at this juncture.
We know that last year, this was a team that, actually didn't do that great in the midweek games. And, that
very
was
kind.
Yes. And, that was kind of the story a lot of the season, right? They would go and they would play a Big Ten game or a Big Ten series, and then they would play, South Dakota State or Creighton or whoever it may be and not look so good. Do you know, is there anything that they've changed from this year to last year in terms of their preparation for the midweek games, how they're approaching the midweek games, or is it kind of just tossed off to, hey, we just have to play better baseball on Tuesdays and Wednesdays this year than we did last year?
Yeah, I don't know that their approach is anything all that different. I think if they were being optimistic of a change, it's going to start with deeper pitching and this idea that, whoever wins the Sunday job, like, there's going to be other guys that can conceivably give you some length in the midweek. Maybe that's Jackson Brockett, maybe that's Will Walsh, maybe that's TJ Coates, maybe that's somebody else who emerges. But since Will Bolt's been here, and I went back and looked at some of these numbers, and you can kind of classify midweek games a little bit differently, but they've been essentially a 500 team in the midweek, which just kills you in terms of resume. And it contrasts with what Nebraska's done on the weekends, especially, the last couple of years when they've been contenders in the Big Ten. So what that has told me is that they haven't had those trusted arms in the midweek. And I mean, you can ask the coaches, and they said there were days you might as well just draw a name out of a hat and say who's going to start today, and you hope that they can give you some length. And if they can't, it's going to be a Johnny Holstaff sort of day.
Yeah.
So I think they feel like, hey, maybe they have guys who can give you 4 or 5 and give you those quality innings, give you a chance to lead. And offensively, you need to figure it out, because those are the games sometimes that you do need to win, 11-8 or something like that. These aren't going to be necessarily the well-pitched Friday or Saturday games that you're going to see in conference. So I think sometimes Nebraska's going to need to get into a slugfest and have its bats hold up and hold up its end of the bargain. But probably more often, I think, where Nebraska has felt that it stood out, and where I see it standing out relative to a lot of teams in the area, is its pitching depth. And so does that manifest? Does that show up on a Tuesday or Wednesday? We might find out this week.
7-8 weeks from now, if we're talking to you on a Monday morning and we're talking about Isaiah Neyor being drafted, your reaction would be what?
It would be, huh? Okay.
Mm.
It would be a testament to, I think, the physical measurables that he has. When you're that tall, when you're that fast, those are the kind of guys that NFL scouts can talk themselves into, because he's got the stuff that you can't coach in terms of those physical attributes. And if you turn on the tape at Nebraska and say, oh, he dropped some passes, yeah, I think teams can say we can work with that. We'll take the speed, we'll take the frame. He's a few years removed now from his major injuries, so he should be pretty healthy. So it wouldn't shock me. Again, those are the kind of guys that I think teams do talk themselves into, and they say, well, maybe the college production wasn't outstanding all the time, but that's somebody who can come in and develop within our franchise. So one of those cases where once the season ended, I don't know how many radars he was on in terms of being a draft pick, and now the farther we've gone through the off season and the evaluations, I think he's making a move. So I guess maybe in 2 months we won't be surprised at all. I guess I'm still at this point just more impressed with what he's been able to do in the off season to boost his stock.
Yeah, he's always had the size and speed. It's the drops. But you're right. You make a good point. I think he was on the radar for a lot of people and set for a breakout season when he was at Texas, and then he had the ACL injury in 22. It's just watching him, we saw the same thing. He's got the size and the speed, but then when he was doing drills, there'd be a drop here, a drop there. I think he'll find his way onto a roster, though, as an undrafted free agent. Could be very interesting how people look at him, and also Thomas Fidone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Fidone kind of, in a lot of ways, a similar situation where he's a couple years removed from his own ACL. He's got all the size. He's got the recruiting pedigree. He's a guy I think that improves his stock when he does interviews, just because he's no nonsense and blunt and clearly loves football. Like, he's not here for any other reason than he just likes the game and loves to scrap and do all that sort of stuff. So I think it's maybe frustrating sometimes for Nebraska fans when you see these guys who didn't produce for whatever reason go on to test well and do well in the NFL. But I do think Fidone would fit that mold as well, as somebody who, if he lands in the right place and he's in the right headspace and set up schematically, I think he could do really well in the league, like a lot of previous Husker tight ends have done too.
Yep. Evan, as always, we appreciate it. Hopefully you get to be busy this week and stay warm.
Yeah, sounds great, guys. Thanks.
That's
See you, Evan.
Evan Bland from the Omaha World Herald. Take a quick break. We'll come back. Jacob Bigelow's got a thought or two on what he witnessed at PBA. Maybe what we'll all witness in Columbus.
Ooh.
At 8 o'clock tomorrow night.
I'm saying a win.
What do you think the line will be in that game?
I will say 4.5 for Ohio State, minus 4.5.
In an elimination game before you get to the Big Ten tournament. Could be an elimination game for fans the rest of the way.
Could make an argument. It's Fred Hoiberg's biggest game of his tenure here in the Nebraska basketball era.
Evan Bland, that segment will be up on the radio replay page. Jacob Bigelow. We'll see if he agrees with you. That's coming up next. All right, 13 days from Selection Sunday. Creighton is in the tournament. Omaha has to win 3 in Sioux Falls. Nebraska, some would like them to go to Vegas, which would not be the NCAA tournament.
The crown.
Let's welcome in Jacob Bigelow. Good morning.
Hello, gentlemen. How are we on this fine Monday?
Good. You've been up for a while. Your voice sounds strong. You've been talking to people. You're prepared for your weekly appearance. I like it.
I mean, you got to come prepared. I don't want you to think that I'm showing up. I'm coming on for these interviews ill prepared. I mean, I am well slept. I'm not dragging ass. I mean, I'm locked in. I'm locked in for this every Monday at 9 a.m. Like this is my season's on the line. I wouldn't want to come out lackadaisical with my season on the line and, give you 20 atrocious minutes, Gary.
Yeah, you don't want to give 13 bad minutes of a 20-minute interview and then expect to end it on a really, really high note, right, Jacob?
No, that would never be the plan. You got to be locked in from the jump before tip even. Like, I mean, if you're juiceless, you're useless. And I'm bringing the juice today.
I like
and
that line. I love that line. Okay. What the hell happened for the first 28 minutes or so on Saturday? No juice. I don't know if they were, the whole basketball team was celebrating Ramadan. But nothing going early, too late. What happened? Why are we in this position?
We're in this position because, speaking of juice, you have to question if the maximum amount of juice that could be squeezed out of this roster, which I now will openly say is 2 60-year seniors and the island of misfit toys. The juice. There isn't much juice left, and that was made pretty clear in the first half on Saturday. The team that came in with an under 500 record that had never won in that building and had just lost back-to-back games to two teams in the cellar of the Big Ten at home looked like they had juice. They looked like they were playing for their coach, who has been the subject of much hot seat speculation for the last 2 seasons. For God's sake, they picked him up off the ground to celebrate with him in the Minnesota locker room after the game. That one team was playing for their coach. The other team, I don't know what they were playing for, and they had everything to play for. Their season, the postseason, and it was about as embarrassing of an effort as I could have possibly imagined. You can say what you want about them, about the comeback and having the chance to win it at the end. You shouldn't have been in that position. If Nebraska had somehow come out with that win, it would have been grand larceny. They had no right, rhyme or reason to win that game based on how they came out, how they looked throughout, and the fact that they were even in that position. That's a testament to Minnesota turning the ball over as much as they did in the second half.
Do you think at times Fred has to almost guess what lineup is going to be able to give him quality minutes and then just kind of play Yahtzee and keep shaking the dice in the red cup until it turns out the way he wants it to?
He absolutely does. He has he has 2 guys that I'd consider consistent. When your third leading scorer and your third option on offense is a guy who got buried at a team in your conference last season on the roster of a team in your conference last season because of his lack of defense and inconsistent shot making. That's your third guy. That's your third guy who, when you needed, when you're making your run, is taking elbow pull-up jumpers and will gladly pull up from 3, and people are arguing that him getting an open look for 3 when he was 0 for 4 and could hardly hit the broadside of a barn 2 games ago was the best shot to get end game. That's a tough situation to be in when you're playing a team that has a record below 500 and they play a lot through the post because their best player is Dawson Garcia. He had an off day on Saturday, but when all 3 of your post players are borderline unplayable, you have to roll the dice quite a bit when you have 3 guys who are 6'10" or bigger and they all look unplayable against the team at the bottom of your conference. I mean, you're not just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. I mean, you're kind of just throwing darts blind, to see what can pair best with your 2 60-year guys who finished with 21 points. And I think the rest of the team outside of Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary on Saturday made 9 shots. If I remember correctly, those two both finished with 21 points. The rest of the team made a combined 9 shots from the field.
Can you imagine if Fred hadn't put the press on in that game on Saturday?
It's a great point.
There were boos. There were boos in the first half. There were boos in the second half. I mean, it would have been. I mean, it was teetering on a clowning. Like it was teetering on a clowning and a double-digit loss, and I mean that would have made it even more embarrassing. I mean, I still think it's an incredibly embarrassing loss, given what was at stake for the season, what was at stake for the perception of your program, locally, especially. I think in the conference and nationally, it's not being as turned up to 11 as it is, with some people here. But I mean, it's with everything that was on the line to come out, and that's your effort, and you have to. And that's how the result plays out on your home floor with that much on the line. It's embarrassing, and you can't sugarcoat it. You can't. I'm not making excuses. I mean, that was flat out embarrassing.
Fred Hoiberg is what when it comes to player development?
See, I mean, his best. I mean, I don't know the exact adjective, but I mean the development. The guys that have developed the best have been, and in his tenure at Nebraska, have been guys that have come from the mid-major level and moved up to the power conference level. So, it's not one adjective, but it's unfortunately it's a work in progress, which is what development is. Funny enough, but I mean you can point to guys like Bryce Williams who they've nailed that. That is by far the biggest hit of their transfer portal era. Since they've been here, there's no one that they brought in out of the portal that comes close to Bryce Williams. He went from Conference USA to the Big Ten, and he's developed well. The rest of their development, record is not very good. A work in progress is almost. That's not what you want to hear in year 6, and I know that's what no one wants to hear in year 6 of a coaching tenure. But it's definitely there's a lot to be desired in that department, and that's what they put a lot of their chips in on this year was player development. When you take guys that are reclamation projects of sorts out of the portal because it didn't work at their last spot, and you're like, well, if they're playing for us and they're playing in our offense and they're playing in our system, they should be able to develop and get better. And that just has not been the case.
Is Fred in trouble?
It's starting to seem like. It's not definitive. I think that there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of pressure going into next year. I've been saying it for the last couple weeks that for his sake, for the sake of going into next year, that they need to make the NCAA tournament, and they need just any modicum of positive momentum at the end of the season for the sake of support and backing. And if they don't have that, it could be pretty ugly around here. And it's starting to bubble up a little bit. It feels like, you got to look at, it's not what have you done for me lately? It's an entire, body of work. And when you look at the entire body of work, if you get through 6 seasons, there's one NCAA tournament appearance, and the year after your NCAA tournament appearance, you're playing in the Crown. That's kind of not where you want to be.
Well, I just want to throw this in here. He was the Big Ten Coach of the Year last year. See how things can change so quickly?
People have forgotten that he was the Big Ten Coach of the Year. They went to the NCAA tournament for the first time in a decade. He got a contract extension. They're on the bubble the year after an NCAA tournament appearance. They're in the conversation. They're in the discussion. The season hasn't been over for a month. You haven't been playing, portal roulette since January, which is, quite the contrast compared to some Nebraska basketball seasons around this time of year. But it's to each their own. It's a question for the AD, who I think without question is the first AD since I've been alive, who I think could has some basketball brain, and it's for a fan base too. It's, what do you want men's basketball to be at Nebraska?
Is tomorrow the biggest game for Fred Hoiberg as the coach of Nebraska, considering not only just the internal but external stakes that could be on the line here?
I mean, it sure feels like it. I mean, there was already a lot of pressure. There's even more pressure, and what feels like the ultimate loser leaves town game between Nebraska and Ohio State tomorrow night. I mean, Ohio State already has 13 losses, and their last 2 games of the season are against the other 2 Big Ten teams that are bubbly, Nebraska at home, and then a trip to Assembly Hall on the weekend to wrap up the regular season against Indiana. So, I mean, it's two teams with very weird seasons, very weird resumes, and they're both, coming down to the last week of the regular season, and the ultimate bubble eliminator tomorrow night at the Schottenstein Center.
And I wish I could say Nebraska has the ability to have a sense of urgency and play with desperation, but I'm not going to go down that path. I want to go down a different path, because I'm looking, and I'm glad you brought up the reaction to Ben Johnson, because they had 2 bad losses in the barn, and I thought they were done. It's getting towards the end of the year. It's not like they're a young team and there's like, hey, there's a future. They're an older team.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they kept punching early, and they're like, oh, God, we're up 19. I mean, even to the shock of some of those guys are like, whoa, what is going on here? But you mentioned the reaction to Ben Johnson in the locker room. And there's a lot of discussion in Minnesota about, this stretch of basketball with Minnesota and if Ben Johnson's going to be back. And their NIL is not great, but also there aren't a lot of people that have faith in Ben Johnson that they're pouring money into their basketball program. So they got to make a decision there. But you know a lot about the Minnesota job. We know there's an abundance of high school talent in the state of Minnesota. I mean, Chet Holmgren, Suggs. We could go on and on. But a lot of those guys don't stay home. What's a better job, in your opinion? The Nebraska job or the Minnesota job?
I think right now in its current state, it's Nebraska. But I think there's more. I think the word, and I know potential is, it's a buzzword, but I mean the Minnesota thing. I mean, Richard Pitino got ran out of town because of how many Minnesota kids got away from, didn't stay in state, didn't stay home. Ben Johnson's rosters have been majority Minnesota kids since he's been the head coach. He's an alum. And they've left a lot to be desired. That job, I mean, they had guys from that roster last season. Their roster got picked over. I mean, Elijah Hawkins. I mean, think about that team. If Elijah Hawkins and Pharrell Payne are still there, they definitely have a few more W's on the roster for sure. But I mean, they had guys leaving last year because they could get better NIL from Tulsa. There was a Star Tribune story earlier this season. It's like, yeah, this guy left because he got a better NIL deal to go play at Tulsa, and that's never what you want to hear when you're a Big Ten program.
Jacob, you got teams like Vanderbilt, like Louisville, like Michigan, who have first-year head coaches who are going to more than likely make the NCAA tournament. Michigan and Louisville both primed to have some pretty good runs in the tournament. Do you think that those coaches having such early success with their new programs is going to play a part in whatever decision or whatever thought process may go on in the athletic department in regards to Fred Hoiberg's current situation?
I mean, it's a conundrum, right? Because there's been talk in other sports about how now in the NIL era and what will inevitably be rev share or pay for play, whatever you want to call it, that it becomes tougher to fire coaches because you got to have that money around for other reasons. And then you look at Louisville. I feel like the Louisville story has kind of been lost in the fact that the ACC is a dumpster fire. But I mean that program won 12 games in the previous 2 seasons combined, not 12 games each season, 12 games combined. And Pat Kelsey comes in and gets a career night from Chucky Hepburn the other night, 37 points, and they're in position. I mean, that's a really good basketball team, and that program has done the full 180 from where it was under Kenny Payne. But I mean, it's a conundrum. It's a question of how much of a priority is men's basketball. How much money is going to be a part of the rev share pie when it comes to men's basketball? And I mean, it's a question of it's got to be like from the top down. You're either all the way in, or you're in the the murky waters of, do we want to be all the way in? Do we not? Like, I mean, there, at a certain point, you can only cite a 13-year-old practice facility and a 12-year-old arena as how much you care. Especially in a day where dollars and cents are now the biggest indicator of how much you care about a sport. We've seen money increase tenfold, almost like it's not an option. It's not an obstacle for a 12 and 13 football coach, because football is always going to be that's the standard bearer at Nebraska. And 2 seasons in, they're still fully committed, and their money is not an obstacle over there. How much are you willing to do that for not just men's basketball, but for other men's sports? I'm not saying you need to spend money like you're a football program, but just dollars and cents are now the biggest indicator of what your priorities are in college athletics. And Nebraska's got to decide how much of a priority is men's basketball.
All right, let's have a discussion here real quick about Vanderbilt. Why doesn't anybody talk about the floor? Okay, the benches are on the ends. The fans are from the court about 15 feet away. How come we don't have more discussions about Vanderbilt's floor?
That's a good question. I feel like there was talked about a good amount, like when I was younger, when I was in middle school. I feel like it's kind of still fun to see people react to it if they've never watched a game at Vanderbilt.
It's wild.
It is weird.
It
is weird.
It is very weird. And I've got a friend that went to school there, and he was like, if you think watching it on TV is weird, try being at a game in that building. But that's another good story. Mark Byington in his first year there, going to take them to the NCAA tournament
and become the Indiana coach.
You think Indiana wants to pay $30 million for his buyout?
Are they not a basketball school?
I mean, they are, but I mean, $30 million, that's a steep chunk of change. So I don't know if
they had a little uptick in football revenue.
They do.
They've cut some spots in the athletic department to free up some cash.
Yeah, and the football coach at IU and the basketball coach at Vanderbilt probably used to have breakfast in the cafeteria at James Madison together, because they used to be coworkers. So
Scoops
that's
Bigelow.
part of it too.
Hey, we talk a lot about Nebraska basketball matchups and other matchups across the country. You're currently in a matchup right now in the best local sports radio guest bracket. You're currently leading 75-25. How are you feeling? Are you getting a little nervous? You're in a 28-3 situation right now with your very quick big lead. I mean, what are we doing here?
No, I mean, it's not about how you start. It's about how you finish. I'm not, don't want to, give the press conference in the first quarter here. I mean, it's still early. I felt like Sandler at the Oscars, wearing a hoodie and basketball shorts, just being included in the field. So, that's how I felt, kind of sticking out in there. But, we're it's not a bad spot to be in. We're a scrappy 5 seed. You're a scrappy 5 seed in the region with by far the weakest 1 seed. You're in an okay place to be. So I like where we're at.
All right. Do you want to throw out a little campaign here, a little to try and drive the votes this morning? You have anything for the listeners?
No campaigning. I'm just, numbers never lie. I'm going to let the votes speak for themselves, and that's what it's all about. It's about the people. I'm not here to stump. I'm not here to soapbox. Numbers never lie. That's what I'll let do the talking.
How many times have you voted?
Yeah. How many Twitter accounts?
I haven't been online. I haven't opened that app today. I'm trying to stay off unless there's a basketball game going on. So.
It's conference tournament. Yeah. Yesterday started a 14-day stretch of every day we have a conference tournament game.
Yeah, the people were tweeting about the ASUN yesterday. I saw that. I can say wholeheartedly that I did not partake in any ASUN basketball yesterday. I watched UAB Memphis. That's not a conference tournament game, but I watched that. And then yeah, I was not particularly enthralled. But once Arch Madness and the Summit League stuff gets going, I'll be locked in on that. And hopefully I've got a reason to make the trip up 29 to Sioux Falls this weekend. Looking forward to that.
Whoa. All right. I like that. Everybody is a Mav fan this week. Okay.
No, and everybody should be. I think that's the best. That's the best college basketball story that's going on locally here, without question. And that's a testament to Coach Crutchfield, you want to talk about commitment to basketball, to Adrian Dowell and what they've done with basketball at Omaha since he got there. That's a testament to that department and what they've done with that program since Crutch has been there, and it's starting to pay dividends. That was a really cool scene on Saturday. I felt like Squidward looking out the window, that meme, watching what was going on at Baxter while I was in Lincoln. But that was cool to see. I've been to a few games this year, and yeah, like I said, I hope I've got a reason to get in the car and be in Sioux Falls.
All right, thank you, my friend.
Appreciate the time, like always, fellas.
See you, Biggs.
Good rest of the week. Yep.
All right, I can put a banner in the rafters. Please don't put regular season champs. Just put Summit League champions.
Oh, I like that. I also think maybe Mac and Biggs Summit League Tournament World Tour. What?
There you go.
There's some rumblings. That Mac and Biggs might be on the road. Could be big.
What day? Saturday?
Yeah, we
got to win on Thursday.
Hey, my people are talking to his people. Rosenthal's he's talking to Boris right now. They're getting some things figured out. So we just.
Why did I thought you're talking about Ken Rosenthal.
Or Rosenhaus.
Oh, I thought it was me to think of Brian. He'd be tough to get to go on a trip with you guys.
Yeah, people are going back and forth here, talking about it. It's in discussion.
Quick break. We'll come back last half hour on a Monday on 1620 The Zone. Hey, you can join the VIP club and sign up for 1620 the email. First to know about all the exciting content that's happening right here at The Zone. Sports news, contest promotions, and more. Go to 1620thezone.com. We have some exciting promotions beginning with March Madness and also the best steakhouse in Omaha. Just heard that promo. So go to the website, 1620thezone.com. All the goodies are there. Make sure you sign up for the email.
I got to eat a steak. Haven't had a steak yet. 3 months, haven't had a true Omaha steak. I got to knock that off the list. There's many things I have to knock off the list. I haven't had one yet. No, I have not.
Oh, that's right. We haven't. You have not paid up your bet yet.
I have not paid up my bet.
We've gotten a date yet.
We haven't gotten a date. We will do it. But I mean, look, it's very nice when we're always talking about steaks. Eventually, I will go to a steakhouse. I'll tell you all about it. Tell you whether or not I liked it. I have a very, very good feeling. No matter where I go, I'm gonna absolutely love wherever I eat my first Omaha steak.
There are a couple in this town which I would not recommend.
But
We have. They're like Nebraska basketball. Okay.
The floor is low.
There's a common thread in the show today.
Well, there is. So everything is tied to Nebraska basketball. You think it's a football town? No, it's a basketball town.
No.
So Nebraska basketball's highs are really high.
Yes.
Okay. So their wins are like, oh, all right.
Wow.
Their losses are really like, ugh. So that's kind of how I look at steakhouses. I haven't found many steakhouses in this town where you're like in the middle. You're like, I could take it or leave it. If he wants to stay, he can stay. If they get rid of him, But when you go to a really good steakhouse in this town, it's at the top of the top. But man, when you hit that one steakhouse, that's really, really bad, and you say, hey, can I just get it like, medium? And it comes out and the thing bounces off the plate.
Yeah.
Or the cow is mooing. And you're like, oh, I don't think that's kind of like the loss to Minnesota.
Who is the Oregon on the road of?
Oh, I'm not going to do that.
Okay,
I'm not going to do that.
Fair enough.
But here's how I look at a season.
Yeah,
is
seasoning
good? Do you remember your wins more than your losses? That's how I determine if that's a good season or not. Like, this is for everybody.
Yeah.
Like Creighton, Nebraska, Omaha. I remember, now, there are some just bad non-con losses on Omaha's schedule, but only 3 in the conference. And those are, one, they should have never lost in Vermilion. And if J.J. White doesn't get injured, I think they win at St. Thomas. So you could have realistically been looking at a 15-1 conference season for Omaha. But I remember more of the wins than the losses. Can you say that about Nebraska?
No, absolutely not. What the
losses stick out.
Immediately remember the 15-point comeback loss against Iowa. I immediately remember them playing lackluster at an empty Maryland in an empty Maryland arena against Maryland, and them still having a chance to win that game and not winning that game. I remember them playing against USC, and the USC players are yelling on the floor, "We want it more than they do." I remember them losing to a team in Rutgers who was faltering, who was on thin ice, and then the 2 NBA players came in and beat them. I look at those and I remember those way, way better and way, way quicker than I remember the Illinois or the Oregon or Creighton wins. I do, because it's just lost opportunities. And when you look at where the season has been going, you look at those losses as the reason why you're in the position you're in. Nebraska basketball is not in the position that they're in because of their lack of quad 1 wins. They are not in the position that they're in because they haven't been able to build a credible resume to get in. They're in the position that they're in because they haven't been able to beat the bad teams that they should beat. And inexcusably, they've lost some of those games at home.
People forget. This is so I'm with you. Like the course of the season, as it's gone lately, you forget about the Creighton win, which is
you do.
I go back to the point I made earlier in the show. That win, which is a true road win, is still sticking out to look good on your resume.
Massive.
Then Nebraska beat Illinois and Oregon back-to-back. And another one was a true road game when you went to Eugene. You know, another win that you need them to finish the week good. That Oregon State win actually looks good. Oregon State actually has turned their season around, and they're playing pretty well. But you're supposed to remember those. Somebody probably just went, oh, I forgot.
They were in the Diamond Head Classic, and they beat Oregon State.
Like, oh, yeah, Penn State, the Iowa game that you just referenced. and then Saturday. Like for Creighton, for example, do you remember more of the wins or the losses? Now there's only 9 losses.
I remember the Georgetown loss. That's the one loss that clearly sticks out to you, and you're like, "Yep, all right, that was bad. That was embarrassing."
But this shows an enjoyable season because you're going to remember, when we had Pop beat KU.
Yes. Or when they went and they beat Marquette at home, or when they went on the road, they went on the road to UConn and beat the Huskies, and that was when the Huskies were ranked. Mm-hmm. And that's also too that win. We pointed at that win like, man, like you need to get this one. We were kind of teetering on whether or not Creighton was a good team. We were teetering on whether or not they were going to be able to make the tournament. That win, you remember it and how great Cal played, but like Mason Miller comes to my mind immediately in that game because he played incredible defense in that one. It's like you remember those wins because they've had a good season. You don't think of too many lost opportunities. And Creighton, granted, I think might have a couple more excuses because of losing such an important player like Pop Isaac. They had to figure some things out. But you're absolutely, I've never really thought of it of that way before, Gary, but you're absolutely right. You can really tell how a season went if you're able to recall certain results, right? If you're able to pinpoint exactly where did it go right and where did it go wrong. And unfortunately for Nebraska, I think most of this fan base knows exactly where it went wrong, which is going to be even funnier when they win their first NCAA tournament game.
So this is a Brandon tweet. Okay. I consider myself a nuclear psycho. I went back and watched the Nebraska-Michigan game because I was at the game, and I just wanted to, replay the fact that Nebraska inbounded the ball off somebody's head.
Yeah.
So I'm a nuclear psycho, and I'm not ashamed to say that. Brandon says, wouldn't it be ironic if this team were to get Nebraska its first ever NCAA tournament win? This is the most schizophrenic Nebraska team. Or it's just the team that matches the identity of what this program has been like. The WTHs to the wows.
Yeah.
Andrew writes in, or tweets in, and Gary Sharp 6020. I believe I saw a chart going after the Minnesota game that the only team in the bottom 6 that Nebraska hadn't lost to was Ohio State. People forget Nebraska actually beat Ohio State in Lincoln.
Yes.
Seems like a long time ago. But so here, Andrew. So Nebraska currently is in a 4-way tie for 11th. Northwestern, Minnesota, loss. Rutgers,
loss.
Iowa,
Loss.
USC,
Loss.
Penn State,
Loss.
And then there is Washington.
Win.
Yeah, they did beat Washington.
Win. And by the way, they had to come back to beat Washington.
Okay.
I mean, but they came back and they won.
So let me go above the 4-way tie for 11th in the Big Ten. What'd they do against Ohio State?
They won.
What'd they do against Indiana?
They won.
What'd they do against Oregon?
They won.
What'd they do against Illinois?
They won.
What'd they do against UCLA?
They won.
Oh, we'll stop right there because then it comes Purdue, Wisconsin, Maryland, Michigan State.
Jeez, that is crazy. That is incredible. Wow. And you could argue, too, they should have beaten Maryland and they could have beaten Michigan. And now, granted, Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Purdue were all butt whoopings, but like, man, what is that's a reflection. That's just a reflection of if I've ever seen a reflection of inconsistency in being able to just rally anything and being able to like play. If there was ever a team who played down or played up to a level of opponent, it is this Nebraska basketball team, because that's a reflection of what that is. They play down and they play up.
Email from Matt here. And this is kind of a common theme as, Nebraska has weaved their way through whatever is currently going on, where they're 5-10 in the last 15, but yet they win tomorrow night, boys and girls. They win tomorrow night.
I just think it's, why wouldn't they win tomorrow?
You're thinking,
like, why wouldn't they go on the road and play a team that's playing for their lives? And why wouldn't they just go and beat them? Because that's what this team is. That's just what they're going to do. They play the bottom of the conference at home in games where the stakes could not be higher, and they lay an egg. And then they'll go on the road and they'll play a team that also is playing for the same thing. And for whatever dang reason, they will play like, the 83 76ers. I mean, it's It's frustrating. It's frustrating. And once again, that's why when this team wins an NCAA tournament game, I'll just belly laugh about it because of course. Couldn't be the team last year that actually consistently played inspiring and fun basketball.
So Matt's email. I've been thinking, unfortunately, this might be one of Fred's best coaching jobs. I really think this team overachieved big time. Nearly every game, the other team looks better. And I've been wondering all season if this team is the worst best team or the best worst team. At the end of the day, I think it's just a bad team that overachieved. Matt's on a lot of people are vibing with Matt.
Yeah.
Credit to Hoiberg for getting the most out of them, but I don't know how much they have left in the tank. They are done. I said that during the 6-game siesta, and then all of a sudden they won some games where Will Riley misses a 3 in the corner and the game goes to overtime and they won. There's another, you brought up something, and this goes way back because I'm thinking about the vibes of this season. January 4th on a Saturday, we're laughing at Mick Cronin. Nebraska wins that game.
Yeah.
Nebraska's feeling really good.
Yeah.
And they just haven't gotten any momentum. And they had momentum going into it because remember they went to Hawaii.
Yeah.
I mean, we all watched that together. We were excited to watch Nebraska on Christmas beat Oregon State. We were opening presents and we were in Husker Twitter. Everybody was together and we were so joyous. Bryce Williams, God.
Does he still have that oar?
He does.
Do you think if they don't make the tournament, he'll still carry that oar with fond memories?
I think he will swing that around an empty locker room to let out the frustration of the year.
Then
they beat Southern.
If University of Nebraska Omaha makes the NCAA tournament, Bryce Williams should give them the oar, and they should beat up a trash can with the Diamond Head Classic oar. That'd be funny.
We don't share our trash can.
Fair enough.
They beat Southern. Remember?
Trash can.
Gavin Griffiths got to play, and you're like, ooh.
And then Coach Fred Hoiberg went on the presser and goes, yeah, he's had some really good practices, and he looked really good today. And then he did not play in any meaningful minutes down the stretch until it was an away game, and they got
to play against Penn State and Northwestern.
Penn State, there you go.
Then they beat UCLA. Then that Tuesday night in Iowa City, and Nebraska basketball got exposed, and they haven't been the same.
That will be it. That is the night of infamy. That is it. That is the night.
I told some people after that game that is going to change everything, and they're like, "You're being so dramatic." It was just a bad one.
Just one game. It was supposed to be, a 15-point lead, and you blow it. You had a chance. You got the game to overtime.
And I was like,
Bryce hit the shot, and everybody was stunned, and they didn't really celebrate with him. And then they got blitzed at the beginning of overtime, and you're like,
it wasn't even competitive. It wasn't even competitive in overtime. After making a miraculous, the game was over too. Iowa had the game in hand, and they made their own miraculous comeback and somehow could not parlay that into dominance in the overtime. You're almost sitting there being like, you know what? I wish Bryce missed the shot. I wish Bryce didn't make that shot, and we just talk about him. What if he did make that shot? Because we would have all convinced ourselves we would have won in overtime.
Clint says, why does the Nebraska men's basketball team feels like a football team trying to become bowl eligible? Where is Nebraska's Wisconsin?
Is
on the floor.
I was having flashbacks when I heard Fred say in the presser after that Minnesota game. It's a good practice.
I saw it.
Good practice, but I don't know. Doesn't mean anything if it doesn't translate to the game.
What is a bigger badge of prestige? The Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl or the Vegas Crown Tournament?
I don't know. I'm just sad. Well, you can go to Vegas where they're post-COVID, they're just gouging everybody. No wonder the economy's down in Vegas. You're going to pay $27 for a drink?
Yeah,
$10 for a slice of pizza? No wonder people aren't going to Vegas, man. After COVID, they just start gouging everybody.
Yeah,
bring back old Vegas. And bring back the NIT. Okay? This tournament in Vegas called the Crown.
It's a joke.
Is it sponsored by Crown Royal?
I want my NIT. Let's go back to MSG.
Old man screams from clouds about NIT being removed from the college postseason. Who did that? What a terrible decision. I got slapped in the face so hard this weekend, by the way, when I went and ordered a couple of drinks in Wrigley and realized that I'm no longer in Nebraska where everything is in the $4 to $6 range. God, I love this state.
Basically, it's free.
I'm telling you, people complained this past weekend that Vegas is super slow. Tell you, because post-COVID, they're gouging everybody.
They're scraping the pockets.
You already have to sell an arm and a leg just to fly and book a room.
Go and try and play a table. I mean,
Are they raising the limits? Are they raising the limits on the tables too?
Most of the limits are pretty high end.
Jeez.
That's terrible. You know, you got to let the little man be able to gamble. You know, you
That-
got to have the $10 to $15 limit tables. You can't be. I mean, you got to let
Hey.
the little guy.
The current Vegas in Nevada, there's a reason why Stark Vegas is starting to make some noise.
Stark Vegas.
Stark Vegas.
What's Stark
Starkville.
Vegas? Starkville, Mississippi.
Yep, Stark Vegas.
Is that what they're calling it? Is that what the?
Spent a couple of nights in Starkville.
Okay, there you go.
It's got a ways to go.
Stark Vegas. What do you
They got
think
a nice.
needs?
They got a nice like art district where they have some nice restaurants and
Yeah.
a bar. About 20 blocks. Well, about 15 blocks from campus. They got a ways to go. They're in the middle of nowhere. They're kind of out in the desert of Mississippi.
Have not enough people lost in Stark Vegas for them to build the palaces and the golden troughs and whatnot? Do more people
Give
need?
it time.
No,
Yeah.
but they have a banger. Walk-ons is really good there.
Is that a burger place or is that
It's a sports bar. It's a Drew Brees.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah.
In Starkville,
We were supposed to get one out at the outlets. What happened?
Oh, really?
Out in Big Ten outlet. Yeah, we were going to get a walk-on.
Huh.
It's basically in the South, but it's a sports bar.
Yeah, that's a great name. Too
That's
many.
good.
Too bad there won't be too many of those in college football anymore.
That's true.
Right.
I have to change the name. We'll be-
NIL on.
We'll be back. Wrap on this show after this. Hey, I want to slip in a football thing here. We'll spend more time tomorrow when we got Sam and BC on talking about the combine and how they should move up spring football because of everyone's angst for Nebraska basketball. Something we used to do this a lot when Scott and Mike were the head coaches. We used to talk about strength and conditioning coaches a lot. We don't talk about Corey Campbell hardly at all.
We really don't. The most we talk about is when he is the one that leads out the team in the tunnel walk, and that's just about it.
The only, it's nonsense for people on the radio that have not been in it to talk strength and conditioning because you don't know how all the dynamics work. The only thing that I would say is Nebraska has to get faster, but Corey Campbell kind of had a nice little weekend with everybody that went to the combine. Him and the individual trainers that work guys out to get them ready. But I think it's important to look at Nebraska's representations that played in the Senior Bowl or the Shrine Bowl did well, and then they turned around and went to Indianapolis and did well. I don't overlook that. That's something to follow as for the next 5-6 weeks, guys make individual visits, and then Nebraska has their pro day at the end of this month. If I was at the combine, I would show up. I would shake hands. I'd kiss babies. I'd maybe time my teammates, but I wouldn't compete in Nebraska's pro day. But I think that's guys followed up a good playing football in a all-star game with good numbers at a combine.
I still think, though, you can kind of flip it another way, too. And maybe this is a discussion that we can have more tomorrow, but you have two guys in Isaiah Nayer and Thomas Fidone who had really, really good numbers and improved their draft stock. And Fidone was a guy, where you look at the mock draft databases, wasn't showing up a lot. He's now showing up in those mock draft databases because of how he tested. You kind of have to think a little bit, though, why the thing that was holding these two guys back was the production. Why did they test so well? Why was it so great? Why did they go out and accomplish that? But why wasn't all that production there? There are a lot of answers that you can have.
Production and
it's different. It's different. And there's a lot of different instances and answers and whatnot, but it's one of those things where it's great that they had combines and it's great that they might end up getting drafted, but there's other questions you can ask about that.
Is a strength and conditioning coach in a football program just like an umpire or a referee? If we don't talk about them and don't know their name, they're doing a good job?
I think so. I think it's exactly like that, but at the same time, I think Corey Campbell has done a pretty good job of explaining exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it in the very rare instances he's able to talk to people. And the words sound big enough and a little bit confusing enough and like scientific enough to be like, okay, I'm sure that's working, But I do agree with you in the fact that Nebraska doesn't have that speed. They don't have that pop. There really was only one guy who had that, and that was Corey Barney. And he wasn't necessarily a disciple of the work he did with Corey Campbell. He had that coming out of high school.
All right. Big day of hoops tomorrow. Plus, it will be a day closer to everybody for Omaha Maverick basketball. I just looked at this. Tomorrow night's game's on Peacock for Nebraska.
Yeah. Pay-per-view, baby. It's a big game. When you got a main event like that.
Stephen Bardo is on the call.
Got to pay for it. Got to pay for it. Got to be behind.
Creighton plays at 6. Nebraska plays at 8.
Jesus. I know I'm turning into Jimmy, but 8 o'clock, man.
Take a grandpa nap. You'll be fine.
I'll be fine.
Thanks everybody that tuned in today. People care about Nebraska basketball.
Yes, they do.
But how much longer will they care if tomorrow's effort doesn't look good? Ooh, senior day would be interesting.
Yeah.
With one guy that has had a monster 2 years here. All right. We'll do that tomorrow. Thanks, Peter, for sitting in.
Loved it, as always.
I hope I am talking to you Thursday night. We are on a roll here.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk to you all tomorrow at 6. Crossovers coming up next for Peter, from Adam, Gary. Gary and Matt, 1620 The Zone.